Top billing is back with a bold new chapter and fresh new faces leading the way. Get ready to experience the world of luxury, travel, design, and inspiring stories with our dynamic new presenters, bringing their unique style, energy, and perspective to every moment. The all-new season of Top Billing premieres on S3, Thursday the 30th of April at 7 p.m. Repeats Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC 1. Top Billing is back. You don't want to miss it.
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Berea, the home of the four bespectacled Tisson brothers, all of whom work or have worked on the English service, particularly Audio Mix and Radio Today. Watch how the night proceeds towards dawn.
And
I needed a little when I started the early program. People couldn't believe that John O'Donnell and B. Reid were chosen for the early morning program, because if ever two announcers used to want to swap a morning shift for an afternoon shift, John and I would do it.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM. This Freedom Month, we reflect, we remember, and we celebrate how far we've come. 30 years into democracy, South Africa continues to shape a future grounded in justice, equality, and opportunity for all, under the theme Freedom and the Rule of Law. 30 years of democratic citizenship. SAFM will bring you all things freedom, the voices, the stories, and the conversations that matter. Join us as we honor the journey and explore what freedom means today. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Briefing on SAFM.
All right, let's take a look at your weather for this morning. We'll start with the warnings that have been issued. We have a yellow level 2 warning, severe thunderstorms with heavy downpours leading to localized flooding and damage to susceptible informal settlements and infrastructure expected over the western parts of Northwest, the northwestern parts of the Free State, as well as the northeastern parts of the Northern Cape. A yellow level 1 warning, damaging waves resulting in localized disruption of small harbors and or a port for a short period of time. Small vessels at risk of taking on water and capsizing in a locality, and difficulty in navigation are expected between Port Edward and Corsi Bay. There are no fire warnings this morning. The advisories, conditions favorable for first frost of the season, are expected along the Lesotho border, the southern parts of both Free State and the Northern Cape. In Pretoria, the weather's partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 9, maximum 23. The expected UVB sunburn index moderate. In Johannesburg, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 7, maximum 22. In Vereeniging, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 7, maximum 21. In Mbombela, morning fog patches. Otherwise cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 15, maximum 18. In Polokwane, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 13, maximum 20. In Mahikeng, partly cloudy with isolated afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 9, maximum 21. In Vryburg, partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 6, maximum 20. In Bloemfontein, fine becoming partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum -2, maximum 20. In Kimberley, fine becoming partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 2, maximum 20. In Uppington, partly cloudy with scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers. Minimum 6, maximum 25. In Cape Town, fine, wind light and moderate in the morning. Otherwise, fresh to strong southeasterly. Minimum 12, maximum 21. The expected UVB sunburn index very high. In George, fine, the wind light and variable in the morning, becoming moderate easterly to southeasterly in the evening. Minimum 9, maximum 18. In Gqeberha, partly cloudy, wind light westerly, becoming light southeasterly to easterly in the evening. Minimum 12, maximum 18. In East London, the weather is fine, wind light westerly, becoming light northeasterly overnight. Minimum 13, maximum 21. In Durban, it's partly cloudy, wind light southwesterly, becoming southeasterly in the afternoon, but northwesterly in the evening. Minimum 15, maximum 23. The expected UVB sunburn index very high. In Richards Bay, partly cloudy, wind light to moderate southwesterly, becoming southeasterly late afternoon, but northwesterly in the evening. Minimum 15, maximum 24. In Pietermaritzburg, partly cloudy, minimum 8, maximum 20.
You are listening to the National Briefing with Cathy Mohlahlana.
All right, it's 17 after 6 o'clock. We had to switch things up a little bit, bringing you the weather before the newspapers. Hopefully, we're not messing up too much with your morning agenda. So it is 18 after 6 o'clock now. Let's get then into the front pages of the national publications. The fuel levy fuel levy relief to be phased out by July. That's the front page of the Business Day this morning. Treasury is giving up a total of 17 billion rand in revenue. And it's a story that we'll also be covering later on the show. The government extending its general fuel levy reduction for petrol by another month and pausing the tax on diesel altogether to partially cushion consumers from the blow of another round of hefty price increases in May stemming from the war in the Middle East. This will bring the estimated cost of the temporary fuel levy relief introduced on the 1st of April to 17.2 billion rand in foregone tax revenue. Now, the National Treasury and the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources confirming that in a statement issued yesterday. The finance minister also proposing to halve the level of relief after June the 2nd and phasing it out before July. So those are the timelines that government is working with now in as far as that particular matter is concerned. Also on the front page of the Business Day, Sunday Times editor placed on special leave over SIU probe. Makudu Sefara, the editor of the Sunday Times, has been placed on special leave after being implicated in a special investigating unit probe about misappropriated lottery funds. We've seen the SIU sustaining these investigations, and quite a number of organizations and individuals now being brought into disrepute over how monies have been spent. Safara among the latest now. He's refuted the allegation, saying the SIU is grandstanding and making false claims. Yesterday, the SIU saying that they investigated a series of allegations, including malpractice, corruption, maladministration in municipalities and state-owned entities, and had said that it had received 13.2 million rand from beneficiaries, right, related to the National Lotteries Commission, who had unduly benefited. So what is Sefara being accused of? He's being accused of having received monies that were paid out to Todi Media Development Foundation, NPC. It was 1.71 million rand that the SIU says was unduly awarded, right? And they found that Todi Media then had transferred 550,000 rand rather and that was diverted into an entity called Unscripted Communication, whose director is Makudu Sefara. And they're arguing that this money was transferred inappropriately and that the funds were never used for the intended purpose. So very serious allegations being made against the editor of the Sunday Times, also chairperson of SANEF. The Sunday Times has placed him on special leave while he has stepped down as the chair of SANEF. The front page of The Citizen, Josie's vicious debt cycle, they're focusing on instead of collecting revenue from its residents, the city of Joburg relying heavily on loans to survive and borrowed 5 billion rand from financial institutions in the past year to fund infrastructure projects. The city spending just over 1 billion rand more than it collects in income, and experts are warning that that is totally unsustainable. But not surprising, if you look at the city of Johannesburg, do residents, Joburg Water, what happens when you call Joburg Water and asking about the billing there? What happens when you call City Power? Is the billing intact? Are you able to actually pay your bills efficiently because you're getting billed correctly? The front page of Sowetan, Lerutla crash victims' family speaks, and this is in relation to the official of Ekurhuleni, the cousin of the woman who died in the car accident involving the Ekurhuleni city manager, says that they learned through the media that the police case was closed. The family wants justice and is seeking jail term for perpetrator of fatal crash that robbed the surviving son of a mother. That's on the front page then of the Sowetan this morning. So that's where we leave it. And then the front page of the Star, then very briefly, also staying with the story around Makudu Sefara. That's their main story on the front page. Makudu Sefara suspended amid lottery funds scandal. So that's what you can expect on the front pages of the national publications.
The Global Briefing on SAfm.
Well, taking a look then at what's happening globally, it's a busy diplomatic week. In Washington, King Charles addresses a joint session of the United States Congress. It's rare but also quite symbolic and tells us something about this special relationship as it has been described, particularly within this moment geopolitically. Professor Bekim Gomez Zulu is Professor of Political Science and International Relations and also Director of the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University. Prof, good morning to you. So we'll touch on a number of stories, but let's start with King Charles addressing this joint session of the U.S. Congress. The last British monarch to do this was the late Queen in 1991. What is being signaled here and to who?
Thank you very much, my sister, for having me, and good morning to your listeners. Indeed, that's $1 million question. And this happens against the backdrop of America becoming a protagonist in many wars, including the one involving Israel and Palestine, and the one involving, of course, Israel and Iran, and of course, Hezbollah and other parties in that region. So you are basically having an America that is becoming politically isolated, given the response that America got from NATO member states. And then this also strained the relations between America and the UK. And these have been long-standing partners. Now, if you ostracize a country like the UK, which is a member of NATO, and which is also one of an ally in Europe, you are then running a risk of being isolated for a lengthy period. So I think what King Charles is doing then is damage control, as it were. You would have heard the remarks that were made by President Trump against Stemmer, who is the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister of the UK. They were not good at all. So to try and mend the relations, then King Charles felt it necessary to go and try to basically ensure that America and the UK smoke a peace pipe. So whether then that will be successful or not, we'll just wait and see. But that is basically the broader context within which King Charles is going to the UK, to the US after so many years, as you just indicated.
In Southeast Asia, China's foreign minister is on a charm offensive. He's locking in regional partners as Beijing pushes for influence in the neighborhood. And this is the influence that the United States is also trying to hold. What do you make of this?
It was necessary because there was a time when we had a multipolar world. And then after World War II, which ended in 1945, you then had a bipolar world, the West being controlled by or dominated by America, and the East being controlled by the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, which is now Russia. And after some time, especially with the fall of communism, 1989, 1990, Russia fell off the radar, as it were, and then we had a unipolar world which was controlled by America. America basically becoming the big brother of the global community. Now we're going back to a multipolar world with many actors, China being one of them, Russia being another, and then we still have America that still wants to hang on to hegemony. And then in this case, China is then making inroads in the region, visiting the countries like Cambodia, countries like Thailand, Myanmar. So basically to send a message that we are together and strengthening even regional ties to make sure that there is regional stability. Because China is of the view that if there is no regional stability, that will then leave them vulnerable and America will not waste any chance to make inroads. So it's a counter by China to make sure that America becomes irrelevant in that region. So I look at it from that context and looking at the kinds of trade deals that have been clinched with these countries, then we can tell that China is on a mission to try and push America out of that region.
And if we look at South Asia, India has named former Minister Dinesh Trivedi as its next High Commissioner to Bangladesh. This is being seen as a move to repair ties between the two countries since that 2024 fracture.
Yes, indeed. You correctly pointed out that in 2024 there were uprisings, and then that resulted in the leader then, of course, having to run away. That is Halina having to run away and then being stationed in New Delhi. And that strained the relations between Bangladesh and India. Now the two countries are trying to find each other, and the best way to do it then is to make sure that you have an envoy that is going to be the eyes and ears of India to make sure that the two find each other once again. And interestingly, this position has historically been given to people who are in the foreign service. But in this case, they brought the 75-year-old to go and try and mend the walls. And this person doesn't seem to be someone with clout in terms of, say, geopolitics. He was a minister of trade, for example, at some point, minister of health, minister of... so it's someone who is not necessarily in this space, but they are counting on his experience because he's a seasoned politician. It's in that context that they're to send him to make sure that they mend roads. But whether there is an extradition treaty between India and Bangladesh, then, of course, that will determine what will happen henceforth.
Oh, thank you so much, Prof. Bekim Gomezulu. A reminder that so much is still happening in the midst of some of the major conflicts, of course, that we continue to keep an eye on. It's 6:30 and it's time for your latest news headline.
Thank you, Cathy. Good morning. I am Chandrukoli Gege with your headlines. Bellarmine Mugabe and co-accused Tobias Matonodze are expected to be sentenced today in the Alexandra Regional Court north of Johannesburg. The Motor Industry Staff Association, MISA, says government's extension of the fuel levy relief will ease pressure on workers, businesses and the transport sector. And the Office of the Auditor General in the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Municipality in Gauteng says it is unable to find fraud and corruption-related matters against City Manager Kagiso Lerutla. Full bulletin at 7 o'clock.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Already heavy on the N3 north into Heldenace and Van Buren into the lane restriction section. There is nothing else. It's just peak hour volume and some lane restrictions. It is heavy if you do it every day. It's a daily grind. If you haven't done it for a while, but you know you need to get to the airport from the south side suburbs at peak hour, make sure you come with a plan to get through that. Very heavy from Elan's past Cement Factory and in towards that Bedfordview area. Mike 1 pretty slow as well from Boyson's moving through to Empire Road. That's fairly standard though for this time of morning. Traffic lights down around Marubba Stud, so SKM Pathleli into Pretoria looking quite slow today. Durban side, all fairly standard sort of queues coming out of Phoenix, coming out of the Palmview area. Both of those routes towards the R102 are slow. Breakdown at Cliffdale on your way to Pietermaritzburg, but no major problem. And don't forget, if you normally on-ramp the N3 south at Peacevale, you can't do that. You've got to go north and come on at Hammersdale these days. The old N3 road is closed. That's on the southbound side. New lanes given over to southbound traffic with the recently constructed and opened new lanes there. Cape Town, saw this yesterday, seeing it again today. Single lane open, N7 north at 4 Trekker Road. Major traffic disruption coming through from Epping and Langa on your way to Goodwood. Not only does the N7 get jammed, but it jams up routes like Viking Way and just generally puts a lot of congestion around the casino and Thornton parts of Cape Town. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, a very good morning to you. We'll start off the updates this morning. PSG edge Bayern in a 9-goal Champions League thriller.
Oh my goodness, Cathy, you blinked and you missed a goal. You blink, you miss a goal. It was
unbelievable, hey?
Unbelievable. What was that? 9. I mean, I don't even know if that was a semi-final. It was just unbelievable. I mean, it had more goals than
It's more like a netball match.
Actually, yeah. That's exactly it. And not just a netball match, but like a netball match you're playing on your PlayStation. Because you can just keep going. Find the net. Anyway, let's just recap that action from last night. 9-goal was that scoreline. 5-4 in favour of Paris Saint-Germain. They do take a slender advantage into the second leg of their Champions League semi-final. Ousmane Dembele and Kavisha Kvaratskhelia scored twice as the defending champions surged twice and into that 3-goal lead before Bayern fought back late. So Harry Kane also had earlier opened the scoring from the penalty spot, with the result setting up a blockbuster return leg in Munich, which will be next week. Now, FIFA, they've introduced a tough new red card rules ahead of the 2026 World Cup to clamp down on racism and player conduct. Now, players who cover their mouth during heated confrontations could be sent off amid concerns it's used to hide abusive language. In another change, walking off the pitch in protest at refereeing decisions may also result in a red card, with teams risking forfeiting matches if the games are abandoned. The measures are set to be enforced at this year's World Cup. Let's bring it back home. And Polokwane City coach Cathy Mohlahlana admits his side face a massive challenge when they host Mamelodi Sundowns tonight. Rise and shine come into the clash on the back of a morale-boosting 1-0 win over Stellenbosch. But Mohlahlana says facing the defending champions requires near perfection.
Sure. That one is a mountain to climb against Sundowns, because we don't know which team we are going to play of Sundowns. But it boosted the confidence, it gave us courage, and we will go to play Sundowns, not to go and honor the match. We are going there to fight for the 3 points, and if the 3 points are available, then why not? Let's get there.
And the world number 1 in tennis, Jannik Sinner, has powered into the Madrid Open quarterfinals, winning, he beat the British player Cameron Norrie 6-2, 7-5. He'll now face Vit Koprica or Spain's Rafa Hoda. Meanwhile, teenage sensation Mira Andreeva is through to the semi-finals after a straight sets win over Leila Fernandez. And the defending champion and world number 1 Arina Sabalenka is out. She was beaten by Hailey Baptiste. We'll have more of these and other stories here on the National Briefing at the top of the hour. I am Zai Khan.
The Market Brief with Ndauleng Lechela on SAfm.
It's 6:36. You're listening to the National Briefing. Ndauleng, good morning to you. I must say, my jaw dropped yesterday.
Yeah.
I simply could not believe the headline. The UAE leaves OPEC.
Mind you, this is the second largest oil producer within the cartel, Cathy, and they've announced they will exit OPEC, ending decades of membership in order to prioritize its national energy strategy. Now, the decision reflects a deliberate shift toward greater control over production decisions, with the country seeking to expand output capacity and maximize revenues without being constrained by OPEC quota agreements. The move matters significantly for oil markets as it weakens the group's collective ability to manage supply at a time where coordination is already under strain. With geopolitical tensions still disrupting flows, particularly linked to the US-Iran conflict, the loss of a key producer reduces OPEC's influence over price stabilization and increases the likelihood of more aggressive production swings in the medium term. For now, oil prices remain relatively supported due to supply constraints stemming from that Middle East conflict, with crude trading around $111 a barrel. However, analysts note that once geopolitical tensions ease and the UAE is able to ramp up production, the additional supply could ultimately ease price pressures and benefit consumers globally. At the same time, the artificial intelligence trade came under renewed scrutiny after a report that ChatGPT maker OpenAI has fallen short of internal targets for user growth and revenue. Now, the development has unsettled markets that have heavily priced in uninterrupted AI-driven expansion, raising questions about whether the sector's rapid capital expenditure can be justified by near-term demand. Although OpenAI is not listed, the ripple effects were immediate across its ecosystem of partners and infrastructure beneficiaries. Shares of Oracle, Nvidia, AMD, and Broadcom all came under pressure, reflecting how tightly linked the AI narrative has become to broader equity valuations. The concern now is that the AI boom has been underpinned by expectations of surging demand for computing power, and any sign of slowing momentum risks undermining that thesis, placing pressure on cloud providers, chip firms, and other AI-exposed tech names. Now, that market reaction, as I mentioned, was visible across global equities. In the US, tech weakness weighed on indices, with the Nasdaq closing 0.9% lower. Locally, the JSE also started the shortened trading week in the red, with the JSE all share closing 1.8% lower overnight. Now, that decline was driven largely by weakness in precious metals, including gold, silver, and platinum group metals, which in turn pressured major local miners. The softness in commodities and equities spilled over into the currency market, where the rand remained under pressure despite Treasury extending fuel levy relief measures. The currency is trading at 16.57 to the dollar, 22.38 to the pound, and 19.39 to the euro. And then lastly, in Asia, equities trading mixed this morning as investors continue to monitor the ongoing stalemate in the US-Iran conflict, which is still weighing on sentiment across emerging and developed markets alike. That's your business and markets news this hour. I'll be back at 7:30 with another update.
Africa in Focus with Advocate Sipho Mantula on SAfm.
All right, we're joined by Advocate Mantula with the latest now in as far as his brief is concerned. Advocate Mantula, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Where should we start things off?
Refreshing morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. We are still in Bamako, in Mali, Kidala, Gao, those military barracks that were attacked by the Tuareg rebels and many other armed forces that when you look at Mali now, because the United Nations Secretary General Office, Antonio Guterres, outgoing Secretary General, has called for a coordinated international support. I've seen ECOWAS, Ghana, SADC a bit slow to issue their statement, and AU, when you look, they can condemn, but is that how do we restore stability in Mali, Bamako? Because what is happening now, Asim Goit for the first time being seen during this week engaging with the Russian embassy in Mali to engage on what will be the next steps, because others are saying this is one of the largest attacks in 15 years. That so the insurgents, the Tuareg separatist joining forces against the government of Mali as well as the Russian paramilitary backers.
Let's then move on to Ghana. Ghana and Kenya rather. This is where former President Uhuru Kenyatta arrived on Monday evening. This is in Accra for high-level talks.
This is a high-level board meeting, actually, to prepare for what we call TANA High-Level Forum on Security in Africa. You'll recall last week when we spoke to Cathy, he was in Senegal. Now we are moving towards Ghana, Tanzania. This has been an initiative by former heads of state, academics, policy experts, to always reflect on what I call security landscape and emerging threats. Now, it's not only Uhuru Kenyatta as the former president, the former president of Central African Republic, Catherine Samba Panza, is also there. The respected intellectual PLO Lumumba is also part of those engagements of the high-level board meeting hosted by President John Dramani Mahama in Accra. It's a very important meeting. Remember, the year of 2026 is critical when you look at the conflicts that we are seeing and how Africa is now consolidating. Coming from Tana, we'll be having another one in September. We'll give listeners about it. It has become a ritual in South Africa also to have a peace and security dialogue forum.
Good governance at the center of discussion in Addis Ababa?
Indeed, but bit concerned with when I speak to other analysts from there. I say we have retreats, but there are conflicts in Mali, in DRC, in Sudan. But there is an important retreat between the AU Peace and Security Council and the Africa Peer Review mechanism, which begins today in Ethiopia under the theme Good Governance, a key pillar for conflict prevention and sustainable peace and security in Africa. These meetings are very important because it is to also look at past retreats, look at the APRM Council review reports. Remember, in its existence, APRM has conducted 48 peer reviews, and it has expanded its participation to almost 45 of the AU member states, looking at issues of governance. This also retreat will have to look at the current conflicts that we see globally and also the pockets of conflicts that are still in the Great Lakes like the DRC. You look at the Horn, Somaliland and Somalia. You go to Sudan and North Sudan. Many conflicts that when you meet in such meetings, I think retreats must also reflect the implementation of peacekeeping efforts in the African continent.
Advocate Mantula, very briefly, I quite like our historical archive for today. 2 days ago, we marked 27th April, right? Freedom Day. The day that we went to elections. What we often don't tell is how long those elections lasted.
Absolutely, we don't. And it's 32 years when the democratic elections ended today, but still you had an extended vote in the former homelands, Venda, Gazankulu, Leboa, KwaZulu, Transkei, and Ciskei on this day. But despite there was almost 20 million people participated for the first time, and we know what was the outcome. The then ruling party, ANC, got 62%, followed by the National Party, Freedom Front. You remember DP was still there before DA, the PAC, ACDP. There were many things, and observers came out to say that those elections were free and fair. Very contested elections, you will recall, in 1994, 27, 29 of April. Asante sana Cathy, as was leading the Truvezation, SAFM observing the Freedom Month.
Get a free optical frame when you get tested at Specsavers this April. Purchase a comprehensive eye examination and get your optical frame free up to the value of 1,000 Rand. Choose your free frame from our wide range of trendy, affordable styles. Get tested today at your nearest Specsavers or book online. Affordable eye care Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign into the app and click on Transact. Next, select Payables, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Fairly heavy on that N3 again. We saw a sort of, an increase in the delays coming up from Elands to Heldnace yesterday. It looks again like that this morning, just very heavy, passing cement factory and in towards that Bedford View area. If you don't do it regularly, make sure you've got plenty of time to get through there. R21 North has a queue this morning, leaving the airport up towards Pomona Road. So from Atlas Road through to Pomona, that's all fairly slow. Possible collision seen there. And Pretoria, some traffic lights out at Marabastad. So as you come in on SK and Pathlele, some slow-moving traffic into the city centre that side. Durban looking fairly standard. The Commercial Highway from Duff's Road down towards the N2, that's fairly heavy. There is a queue on the M7 approaching the N3 if you're on your way to Pinetown. Backlogs from Hunt Stepman Highway already. And Cape Town, we've been mentioning this yesterday. It's worth further mentions across the morning. It's the N7, Jakes Curvell Drive, northbound at Four Tracker Road. Only a single lane open. It's a change up in the roadworks. The roadworks have been on the southbound side forever. They're still there, but northbound. So the traffic queues effectively from the N2 through Langa, through Epping, through Viking Way, over the railway bridge and up to Four Tracker. It's a real hot mess, as we call it in this business. Viking Way and routes through that area heavily backed as well. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube and X at SAFM Radio.
You're listening to the National Briefing. A pleasure to have you with us this morning as you get into your day. Of course, we want to hear from you throughout the show. The conversation belongs to you. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial for our studio line. 086 000 2032. And on the WhatsApp voice note line, you can send those WhatsApp voice notes and text messages on 0614 104 107. Well, let's get straight into this then, as March and March takes its anti-immigration push to the gates of the union buildings. Sowetan columnist Malaika Matlatsi is arguing that South Africa's entire approach is wrong. She's pointing to Spain, where Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has just regularized hundreds of thousands of undocumented people, at least over 500,000 to be precise, not as an act of charity, but because his economists told him that the alternative would be worse. Matlatsi argues that immigration in this country is not a crisis to be eliminated. It is a reality to be managed, and that mass deportation is neither feasible nor wise. Should we be following Spain and granting legal status to undocumented migrants? That's the question we'll ask then as we get into this conversation. She's a senior researcher and columnist. Good morning, Malaika. A pleasure to have you with us this morning. So your column in the Sowetan has landed with some force. Perhaps make the case in your own words this morning, perhaps not in as many words, rather, as you used in the Sowetan piece. Why regularization and why now?
Thank you very much, Cathy, and thank you to your listeners. So I think that Spain has forced all of us to think very critically about migration because it confronted two realities. The first being that migration is a fact of life, that it's not something that you can eliminate. But the second being that the methods that exist in place that have been to chase away immigrants who then come back and so on are not working. And so that the best way in which we can deal with this thing is to regularize migrants, and in that way, undocumented migrants, and in that way, we bring them into the system. We enable them to be able to look for work and not be doing precarious work or being completely, not existing within the system. But South Africans also often argue that the problem with undocumented migrants in the country is that, it's issues of crime and all of that. I've got my views about that. But I'm saying that if the argument is that undocumented migrants are part of the crime problem and so on, if you regularize these undocumented migrants, you bring them into the system, then you are able to trace them. Because the reality is that we are not going to be able to get rid of migrants in our country, both documented or undocumented. It simply is not feasible to believe that you can crack down on immigrants. We have seen lots of research, lots of data that indicates that every time we have tried to eliminate immigrants by forcing them out, deporting them and all of that, they do in fact return. But also it simply is not fiscally sustainable for us to keep immigrants in detention centers. It also does not align with our policy on how we deal with immigration, because we don't use an encampment policy where we keep people in camps. We actually use an integrationist policy.
As you've rightfully stated, we've seen the organizations that are taking to the streets now arguing that undocumented migrants are taking South African jobs. They're putting pressure on hospitals. You've touched on the issue of crime. These are not small matters for members of our community. So in this kind of environment then, how do you say we're going to be able to deal with the challenge if then we take the step of regularization?
Because the reality of, so think about some of the issues that are being raised, right? Like I've raised the issue about, people arguing that undocumented migrants are driving the rate of crime and they commit crimes because they cannot be traced. So you put them in the system, you regularize them, you are able to trace them. You are at least trying to address that issue. Understanding that crime is also fundamentally a result of many other factors. The issue about jobs, right? Cathy, that for me, and this is an article in a series of arguments I've made about I was thinking around the migrant question in South Africa. The argument that migrants in South Africa are taking jobs from South Africans is a flawed argument. It's one that begs for greater depth of engagement. But you also, and to understand this, you need to look at the kinds of jobs that migrants in South Africa, particularly undocumented migrants in South Africa, are involved in. They're involved in precarious work. They're involved in work within the informal sector. They're involved in, quite frankly, very dangerous work, right? And so South Africans, the conversation ought to be about what is the nature of work in South Africa and what kind of work is it that South Africans are striving to have? What kind of work conditions do we need to be creating? As opposed to making an argument that simply does not stand in the face. Because when South Africans say immigrants, especially undocumented immigrants, are taking jobs from them, which jobs specifically are they referring to? They are referring to precarious work. They are referring to exploitative work and so on. And so you can already see in that kind of a conversation that the discussion that we are having is not a complete discussion. It's not a progressive discussion, because we are effectively saying that South Africans must fight to have jobs that don't pay them, to have jobs that are dangerous, to have jobs that are precarious. When we think about it in the way that Pedro Sanchez and the government of Spain has thought about it, we are able to then tackle even the issue around the nature and the sociology of work that defines what South Africa looks like. The pie in South Africa is definitely not big enough to, the pie in South Africa is a pie that needs to be reflected deeply beyond the fact that, immigrants are taking these jobs and all of that. It is a much bigger question than that. It is a question about the nature of the South African economy and what it looks like for everyone, including South African locals and migrants as well. And I don't think that when we do it this way, you think about the issue around the infrastructure. When you have regularized migrants, they are working, they are contributing to the economy, they are traceable. You are also able then to get them to contribute to the fiscal, to the finances that would be required to deal with the infrastructure building that we are all talking about.
Malaika Matlatsi, will leave it there for this morning. You heard the argument then. Regularize undocumented migrants is the case that she is making. I'll take your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes reacting to that particular story. Well, let's get into this then. The woman who led the National Prosecuting Authority has now walked out of an inquiry she established. Shamila Batoy has withdrawn from the Nkabini inquiry, the inquiry probing former Director of Public Prosecutions in Gauteng, Advocate Andrew Chauke. She's arguing that the proceedings were hostile, accusatory and discouraging. She's also said she was denied proper legal representation during cross-examination and that she will not continue to participate in that cross-examination process without legal counsel. Advocate Paul Hoffman is the Director of Accountability Now, joins us on the line. Advocate Hoffman, good morning to you. Firstly, was Shamila Batoy right to walk out?
Well, that's a question that's going to be discussed, I'm sure, when the inquiry proceeds to the submissions phase, and the parties who have been directed to file submissions by not later than Thursday, the 14th of May, will have the opportunity to set out their stalls. As matters stand at the moment, the Commission of Inquiry has taken the attitude that the evidence phase is over, that it was not prepared to accept a written statement by Advocate Batoy to be admitted into the record via her legal counsel reading it into the record. The reason for that was that the statement, according to the Incumbent Inquiry, has no probative value and may prejudice parties referred to in it, including the panel. So criticism of the panel is anticipated when parties give their heads of argument in the case. So it's all up in the air at the moment. The question you ask me is quite novel because it's unheard of that a participant in a commission of inquiry simply abandoned ship halfway through cross-examination, or part of the way through cross-examination.
And you know,
very unusual.
Advocate, part of what has been raised, right, has been the issue of double standards. There are many that are referencing what happened with the Zondo Commission of Inquiry and the move then, the steps that were taken to bring accountability versus what is happening now. There are even those who are going as far as saying that Shamila Batoy must face charges precisely because she walked out of that inquiry. How does somebody who has been entrusted with enforcing the law walk out of an inquiry that they establish? I mean, it beggars belief.
I think that you're summarizing the case that may be put up by one or other of the parties involved in the matter. Certainly, if this was an inquiry to which the provisions of the Commissions Act apply, and I don't think it regards itself as such. When it set out its mandate, it said the inquiry must be conducted with fairness, transparency, and must adhere to the rules of natural justice, ensuring that the process upholds the integrity and independence of the National Prosecuting Authority. So that is the framework within which the Inkabindi inquiry set out to do its work. And as you rightly point out, Shamila Batoy in December last year said, thanks, I've had enough of this. I'm going to go and take some legal advice before I answer any more questions. And she never returned. She tried to put in an explanation of her position, and the Inkabindi panel said, no, we're not going to accept that. And then all parties involved in the case closed their cases. Now, had the Commissions of Act of 1947, okay, it's an act that even predates me and certainly predates you by a very long way. If that had been the case, sorry about my ridgeback, he really is a bit of a pain. The Commissions Act creates an offence, hindering the work of a commission is an offence under the Commissions Act. But it seems that the inquiry here does not regard itself as bound by the provisions of the Commissions Act. I would think that the rules of natural justice also demand that a person who sabotages the work of a commission of inquiry or an inquiry could well be in trouble for doing so. But we will see what the parties say in their heads on the 14th of May.
Advocate Paul Hoffman, Director of Accountability Now. So this matter is far from over. But what message does it send that you have somebody that was at the helm of the National Prosecuting Authority then being the one behaving in this manner? It's just after 7 o'clock. Chanduko Ligege is standing by with your latest news.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
Thank you, Cathy. The top stories at this hour. Bellarmine Mugabe and co-accused to be sentenced today, and MISA welcomes extension of fuel levy relief. Good morning. I am Chanduko Ligege. Bellarmine Mugabe and co-accused Tobias Matonoze are expected to be sentenced today in the Alexandra Regional Court north of Johannesburg. Earlier this month, Mugabe, the son of the late former president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, pleaded guilty to being in the country illegally and pointing a firearm. However, the admission of guilt for pointing a firearm relates to a separate incident 2 weeks before a shooting incident at his Hyde Park home. Matonoze pleaded guilty to attempted murder, contravening the Immigration Act, defeating the ends of justice, as well as possessing of a firearm and ammunition. This relates to the shooting and wounding of an employee at the Mugabe residence in Hyde Park in February. Sachin Naidu reports.
Last week, the court heard that the victim in the shooting incident is to be paid a total of 400,000 Rand. Sipho Mashlangu, the security guard who was injured during the incident in February, has already been compensated 250,000 Rand and is yet to be paid a further 150,000. This was according to investigating officer Craig Raj, who took the stand in aggravation of sentence. Raj went on to tell the court that a harsh sentence should be imposed as both the accused are still not revealing the whereabouts of the firearm that was used on the day of the shooting.
The Motor Industry Staff Association, MISA, says government's extension of the fuel levy relief will ease pressure on workers, businesses and the transport sector. Yesterday, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana announced that the remaining 93 cents a litre fuel levy on diesel would be suspended from the 6th of next month to the 2nd of June. He also announced that the cut of 3 Rand a litre in the general fuel levy would continue for another month until June the 2nd. This means that the remaining 1 Rand 10 cents levy on petrol will remain in place. MISA spokesperson Pagamile Hlubimajola.
This is a positive step. However, it is disappointing that paraffin prices are set to rise by 5 Rand or more per litre in May, leaving the poorest households who depend on it for cooking, heating and lighting exposed to unbearable costs as winter approaches.
The Office of the Auditor General in the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Municipality in Gauteng says it is unable to find fraud and corruption-related matters against City Manager Kagiso Lerutla. It says the arrest of Lerutla is a criminal offence matter related to a traffic incident in which a person died, not financial wrongdoing. Bongeni Malunga from the AG's office was answering questions from members of Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts yesterday.
Chairperson, in terms of the issue that are currently in the media, I mean the city manager as well as the commissioner are going through, it's not something that we would have picked up from an audit process. As far as I'm aware, Chairperson, the city manager is in prison for, or has been incarcerated for a matter relating to an incident that happened on the road on the N12 that resulted in one of the citizens losing their lives.
In other news, the Eastern Cape Transport Department has advised motorists to avoid the N2 between Mthatha and Qumbu, which protesters have blockaded. It says trucks become targets of looting during such protests. The reasons for the protests are not clear. And finally, the former head of the FBI, James Comey, has been charged with threatening the life of President Donald Trump. The indictment stems from an image that Comey had shared on Instagram last year. It had shown the number 8647, which prosecutors say was a coded call to assassinate Trump. Comey has claimed his innocence in a video posted online.
I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid, and I still believe in the independent federal judiciary, so let's go. But it's really important that all of us remember this is not who we are as a country. This is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values.
A recap on the top story at this hour. Bellarmine Mugabe and co-accused Tobias Matonodze are expected to be sentenced today in the Alexandra Regional Court north of Johannesburg. For SAFM News, I am Chandruko Ligege.
OUTsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
You may or may not know the difference between a teaspoon and a caviar spoon, but you do know a great OUTsurance deal when you see one. Get a Consurance quote now, and if OUTsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim free. And with the same insurer for 3 years, get savings or cash. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP, T's, C's, and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer action. Kaizer Chiefs back tonight. They travel to face Siwelele in a crucial Betway Premiership clash. And Akani Simbine delivered both the highs and the lows at the inaugural Simbine Classic in Pretoria. All the details around 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Pretoria commuters under a bit of pressure for using Solomon Mshlangu coming from Mamelodi. Quite a queue down towards the N4 highway. Also, Eskia and Pathveli, heavy coming into Barabastad. No traffic lights there as you enter the city centre area. Joburg's R21 north away from the airport. Just a bit of queuing pressure up to Pomona Road this morning. We'll keep an eye on that one for you. The N3 north into Heldnace, busy, but actually starting to ease, which is interesting. Durban's M7 into Pinetown. Heavy queues there from Hunstedman up towards the N3. The N3's queuing at Pavilion on your way in towards Spaghetti Junction. And the M13 slow this morning from Hillcrest arriving into the Kloof area. Cape Town, in this business, we call it a hot mess. It's Goodwood. Roadwork, single lane sections, both sides of the N7 between Voortrekker Road and Viking Way around the Casino and Railway Bridge. It's heavily backed up. Northbound from the N2 via Langer and Epping into Goodwood. Southbound through Goodwood towards Viking Way and routes through Thornton heavily disrupted this morning. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The National Briefing on SAFM. Clarity, context, and conversation. This is where the day begins with Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
Ten after 7 o'clock, welcome to the second hour of the National Briefing as you get ready to step into your day. The stories coming up in this hour. National Treasury extends the fuel levy reduction. 3 Rand a litre off both petrol and, of course, in diesel. We're also expecting some relief there. The cost to the fiscus, over 17 billion Rand. It's necessary relief. However, is it kicking the can down the road? In the next hour, we'll be speaking to Professor Raymond Parsons of the Northwest University. We'll also be joined by the CEO of the Fuels Industry Association of South Africa. And in what's being described as a stunning loss to OPEC, the United Arab Emirates is walking out after nearly 6 decades. Dr. Azar Jamin will help us unpack that and also what it's going to mean for you and I and the price of fuel in our tank. And then, of course, coming up on the reality check later in the hour, election expert Terry Tselane continues his contribution on that particular segment, and he's not pulling any punches. Of course, we'd love to hear from you. The number to dial 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107.
Have you discovered the TV license WhatsApp yet? We see you binging reruns, living for the drama, loving the SABC Plus sports replays. Now, paying your TV license fits the vibe. Simply say hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060. Get your balance, make a payment, or set up a debit order all in one chat. No queues, no please hold, just convenience that feels like it should have been here all along. Because every screen in South Africa is a stage and yours is lit. So why wait? Send hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060 and get your TV license sorted today. Hashtag your screen, your story.
Moro, Moni, Dumela, Bonjour, Habari. You arrived in South Africa to build something better. New place, new challenges, new responsibilities. Now you can with the Mama Money bank account. Pay your rent, take care of your daily needs, build your life, and when your family needs you, you don't wait. You send money home, quickly, securely, from wherever you are. Because this is more than money, it's progress. Buy your Mama Money card today at Pick n Pay or a Mama Money agent. Mama Money, now you can.
When you listen to me, I feel important. When you hug me, I feel safe. When you talk with me, I learn.
Your love and attention helps your child grow strong and confident. Listen, comfort, and connect with him because every child deserves to feel seen, heard, and loved.
Visit holdmyhand.org.za.
Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAfmRadio.
7:14, our big story for this morning. National Treasury announcing that the 3 rand per litre reduction in the fuel levy on both petrol and diesel will continue. It's the second month of relief that is being offered at a cost of 17.2 billion rand. This is to the national fiscus. The levy on diesel has effectively now been slashed to zero. Government says it's about cushioning households against global energy shocks. But the people who are closest to this crisis are also standing on the forecourts across the country, watching consumers put in less fuel, cut back on spending, and rethink every trip that they are making. Joining me now is Fani Chifularo, who is the CEO of the Fuels Industry Association of South Africa, FIASA. Mr. Chifularo, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Let's just start with the view from the forecourt. What does this extension mean, and does it protect consumers and perhaps your members in any meaningful way?
Yeah, so in terms of the suppliers of products, in the country, particularly the members that I represent, the wholesalers and the manufacturers, I think the decision by government is welcome. I mean, first, you need to look at what other governments have been doing, across the globe. So it indeed gives a cushion to the users of petroleum products. But from the supplier perspective, you ask a question: what does it mean? In terms of the suppliers. So the issue of affordability is being addressed from the consumer perspective, not from supplier perspective. This is where it becomes very tricky. I think the most powerful line in that statement that I've seen is the last line of that statement, which talks about the slate levy that will need to be considered for the next price adjustment. Because what it means is that the suppliers themselves, they are losing a lot of money, or they are under tremendous pressure in terms of cash flow. Because as government is losing 6 billion per month, the suppliers in 1 month of March, they lost something 20 billion. So it's a delicate balancing that's required, because as we go into the month of May, it becomes very difficult for the suppliers to afford the product in the international market. And as you know, we have been saying this for the longest time, that the issue that we have is the affordability of the price in the international market. And otherwise we are able to access products. But because the amount of money that we're paying in the international market, it's actually far higher than what we are recovering in the market. That is putting a tremendous strain in the cash flow of the members of the association.
20 billion rand as a figure is more than what it's going to be costing the fiscus effectively, through this introduction of the fuel levy. Talk to us about why there is such a high risk associated. Does it have to do with the lead time around securing the orders on the global market and the volatility in the prices?
It's primarily the volatility and the lag in the regulatory pricing system. Because under normal circumstances, the regulatory pricing system, it works perfectly fine. But in this current environment where the jump in prices is quite, large in one day, if you think from the beginning of the war, we jumped to probably over 10 rand very quickly. And we don't normally witness something like that, because the prices here in the country or in South Africa, they are only adjusted once per month. It means if prices, they increase by the magnitude that we have witnessed, you are going to have to carry that additional burden until the next price adjustment. But it does not, in practice, does not work like that. So you might wait for 3 months before you even recover what you have been carrying since March. So it's the function of the lag in the regulatory pricing system more than anything else.
What does this mean? Are we going to have sustained high prices of both petrol and diesel and paraffin in South Africa for some time? Because I imagine as an industry, you're going to want to recover that money, aren't you?
It's not a matter of wanting to recover. If we don't, we are going to be out of business. So essentially, it means the 20 billion, which was by 1 month, it was the amount that we're pretty much carrying on behalf of the motorist. It means for the month of April, we're going to add other billions, because in this industry, we talk about billions and billions. So if you don't recover that money, you're going to be out of business. So it's very important that that money gets recovered. So that statement at the end of the media statement is very powerful, because what it tells you is that next month, the slate levy needs to increase from 0 to a number still to be determined by the mineral and petroleum resources.
It sounds like we're in it for the long haul then, Mr. Chifularo. Thank you for your time. And he represents the industry suppliers, as you heard. So these are the major oil companies that we of course, often will be getting our petrol, our diesel from, or petroleum products from. So I want to name some, but I think I'll get into trouble because then I'll forget others and then I'll create problems for myself. But wherever you choose to get your petrol from, Sasol perhaps being one of the exceptions because they produce their own product locally. So Raymond Parsons, you were listening in to that conversation. The Treasury, of course, believes it's done all it can, but given the complexity that this crisis is creating, as you heard, for petroleum suppliers, but also for consumers on the other end, are there more difficult decisions that need to be taken in this moment?
Well, good morning to you, Cathy. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to share some thoughts. Look, just to perhaps build on what has been said so far, I think we must draw a distinction between the short-term decisions which have been taken by the Treasury and the longer-term structural issues which have emerged because of the global crisis. So I think what we've seen from the Treasury is good policy for hard times in the short term, and I think we must all welcome that. It's in line with what many other countries have been doing in order to at best mitigate the serious impact which the energy crisis from the Middle East has had on fuel prices and the inflationary risks that of course creates. I think the other issue which is important, which we need to discuss, and that is we do have a ministerial task team that has been appointed to look precisely at the whole structure of the fuel price and some of the issues that have already been raised. And I think the issue now must be that apart from the short-term steps which the Treasury has announced, which will carry us over the next couple of months as a shock absorber for the consumer and indeed for the business community itself. On the other hand, we've got to say we need to inject some urgency into looking at the fuel price structure, how it is regulated. Can we streamline it? Can we overhaul it? And I think that commitment needs to be seen now as more urgent as opposed to when it was originally announced, when we thought, well, that ministerial task team only needs to report in March of next year. Well, I think it's clear from what's happening, both from a global point of view and some of our domestic implications, we will have to expedite that decision as to how do we overhaul the actual regulatory structure of our fuel industry, and in a way that will give us some more certainty beyond June.
Professor Parsons, in many ways, it seems to be expediting a conversation that has received some resistance, right, over a number of years now. The only issue is that the impact that it's supposed to be having on consumers is limited in that we are in this global crisis. The rand is also experiencing its own weaknesses. So overall, you find that the full benefit of it cancels out. What does that then mean for consumers?
I think what we've got to understand, whether you're in business or as a consumer, that what has been announced now can only be a temporary short-term mitigating factor. It's not going to offset the full impact. There's no doubt that it will depend on how the oil price goes on from now, how we see the rand reacting. Those are the driving factors that will ensure that nonetheless our fuel prices will go up in the next few months. What all governments are doing is to say, what can we do in a limited way to at least mitigate it in the short term, and then in that process buy some time to introduce any structural changes that will give us confidence and certainty that we can stabilize the situation under more normal circumstances beyond the short term. I think that's all one can do to try to balance out what you have to do in the short term with what you need to do in the longer term as things go back to normal, which we hope. But I mean, once again, every day there is a new factor. There is now this issue which you will be discussing later of of the UAE, which is now breaking away from OPEC. So from a geopolitical point of view, there are a number of uncertainties, and all that a government can do is to see what short-term measures can we introduce to try to limit and indeed to try to cushion the impact on consumers and on other sectors of the economy. At the same time, to use this crisis, there's a great saying, don't waste a good crisis. We must also now, through the ministerial task team and in other ways, say, how do we get beyond the short term and what are the right things to put in place as we can normalize the situation beyond the short term.
All right, Prof, thanks for that contribution. Speaking of which, then, let me welcome onto the show Dr. Azar Jammine, Director and Chief Economist at Econometrics. You heard Professor Parsons touch on this move by the UAE. It's been described as a stunning loss and one that seemingly came out of nowhere. But Dr. Jammine, you're in the business of watching these things daily. Did it really come out of nowhere? Dr. Jammine, I think you have muted yourself. If you can please just unmute so we can hear you this morning. Dr. Jammine? All right, we seem to be having a difficulty with that line. He's muted himself and we're just going to have to reconnect with him. While we do that, I'm going to be bringing in then just some of the reflections that you've been sending through on the show on this particular story. I want to read this message here, and it's around the supply. It's around how government is managing these prices. It says on the petrol price, there is insurance for such instances. I haven't Googled it, but it should be there, Mr. Chifularo. So that should keep prices stable and petroleum supplies in business for at least 6 months. If not, then they should change their insurance provider. And that's a message there from Panuel from Gababangu weighing in on this matter. Yeah, I don't think that the insurance covers everything, which is why he's saying that suppliers are sitting with this problem. Azar Jammine, I understand you're on the line now. Good morning.
Good morning to you and good morning to your listeners.
Apologies, we had a bit of an issue there with connecting to you, but
not to worry.
This move by the United Arab Emirates to leave OPEC, the question I was asking you, was it as surprising to you as it has been to maybe a lot of us who don't have to watch these things as intently perhaps as you do on a day-to-day?
No, I do think it came as a surprise. OPEC has been a fairly stable organization over many years, especially with regard to Arab countries being part of it. And this move by the UAE, I think, did take people by surprise. But one clearly sees that part of the reason is the instability that's been created by the Iran war, whereby Iran retaliated on Gulf countries after being attacked and bombed by Israel and the United States. And the UAE was particularly badly affected. And there's a perception that it felt that the other Gulf countries did not come to its support the way they ought to have done. And as a consequence, I think it's lost a lot of respect for OPEC. The other thing is that it's quite ambitious in wanting to expand its own oil production, and yet being part of OPEC has limited the amount it can produce to around 3 million barrels of oil per day. It would love to be producing at 5 million barrels of oil per day, and being part of OPEC has constrained this. And there's a third factor here, and that is that the UAE has been trying to paint itself as the primary investment destination in the region. And Saudi Arabia under Osama bin Mohammed bin Salman has been in recent years trying to compete and attract a lot of the investment capital that would ordinarily have been going to the UAE. And the UAE does not want to see itself beholden to the hegemony of a neighboring country that is actually scuppering a lot of its economic objectives.
So with the UAE now free to pump more, as you're saying, what does that mean for global oil prices, and in particular for a country like ours, where we are price takers in the market and very vulnerable to changes?
Unfortunately, in the very short term, the fact that the Straits of Hormuz are closed, and that's where the UAE is primarily dependent upon sending its oil through, it's not going to make any difference because, in fact, if the UAE were to pump up production, it wouldn't know where to put that oil, where to store it, because its storage facilities are already full up, because it can't export that oil through the Straits of Hormuz. But from a longer term point of view, it would theoretically increase the international supply of oil by around 2%, and that in turn could translate into oil prices being just slightly lower than would otherwise have been the case. But that's a longer term issue. In the shorter term, it's the closure of the Straits of Hormuz that is a huge constraint.
Dr. Azar Jamim, let me thank you for your time. He is with Econometrics. It's time for your latest news update. Chanduko is standing by.
Thank you, Cathy. Good morning. The South African National Editors Forum, SANEF, has welcomed the decision of its chairperson, Makhudu Sifara, to step aside pending an investigation into allegations of lottery funds misappropriation. Bellarmine Mugabe and co-accused Tobias Matonodze are expected to be sentenced today in the Alexandra Regional Court north of Johannesburg. And legal experts are skeptical on the merits of the charges against the former head of the FBI, James Comey. A full bulletin will follow at 8 o'clock.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Here's one to avoid. Alex area of Joburg Far East Bank protest this morning near the Marlborough station. Far East Bank is under pressure, burning tyres across that roadway. Look for some alternative routes and stay away from that. Crash hit on the R21 at Pomona Road, quite heavy if you're leaving the airport on your way towards Tembisa and Pretoria. Queues back as far as Atlas Road already. N12 and R24 routes in from the Ekurhuleni side towards Geluli's. Both of those are jammed up. N1 going north, not too bad, coming out through Soweto, Rudaport, Randburg, but you'll hit a bit of traffic Malabongwe through to about Rivonia Road. N1 south through Midrand looks good today. Looks okay through Pretoria as well, which is good news. Durban a crash. N3 inbound before you get to Spaghetti Junction, quite heavy on that run in from Pinetown this morning. So backed up passing the Pavilion Mall and up towards that crash scene. M7 heading towards the Bluff, heavy from Queensborough down towards Wakesley Road. In Under Road through Newlands down to the N2 is super busy, and the M13's got some traffic from Maytime Gillets through towards the top of Fields Hill. Cape Town, heavy pressure right in the heart of Goodwood this morning. Roadworks both sides now of the N7 between Viking Way and Voortrekker Road. Very heavy southbound, used to that. Even worse going north from Langa. Viking Way both ways from Elsie's or out from Epping and Pinelands. Very heavy into that traffic congestion on Jake's Havel. Hardly anything moving through that area. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Khan, good morning again. The Chiefs captain is being leaned on for this particular match ahead of, and it's a must-win, isn't it?
It's a must-win, Cathy. Don't be surprised if Peterson walks away with the man of the match again. And, we need this must-win, especially for Chiefs supporters, and they are going to be very busy tonight, okay? This is a big one for them. They have to prove themselves after that 1-1 draw in the derby. They travel to face Siwelele, kick-off at 7:30. Amakosi looking to build on their unbeaten run. Captain Brandon Peterson once again proved crucial between the posts there. The 31-year-old has enjoyed a standout campaign, hitting double figures in clean sheets, but he says he's now focused on building his own legacy at Naturina.
I'm contracted till next year, and for me it's important to just focus on the present, and control what I can control. And that is perform well and show up each and every day, until the time my contract runs out. Whatever happens after that, it's in God's hands. God's in control ultimately. So for me, it's just to put my head down, put in the work.
Polokwane City face a massive test tonight. They take on the reigning Betway Premiership champions Mamelodi Sundowns in Seshego. Rise and shine come into the clash with renewed belief after ending a 7-match winless run at home. But coach Phuthi Mahafe knows the challenge, but he insists he's not short on confidence.
It also gave us an edge to say we are playing at home. We have won the first match at home, so can't you make it 2 in a row? So it is possible for us to make it 2 in a row. I'm not undermining Sundowns. It's a big team. It's a team that is playing in Africa. They are competing well, but we are also looking for 3 points. So let's go and fight for 3 points at off.
All right, we've also got news that Ghana has been awarded the hosting rights for the 2027 Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations as the country prepares to celebrate 70 years of independence. It will be their second time hosting the tournament, having lifted the title on home soil in 1999. And Paris Saint-Germain have taken a slender advantage into the second leg of their Champions League semi-final after edging Bayern Munich 5-4 in a 9-goal classic in Paris. Let's go to a night of highs and a night of lows for South African sprint star Akani Simbine at the inaugural Simbine Classic in Pretoria. He pulled up with a calf cramp in the men's 100-meter final, but earlier had clocked 9.98 seconds in the heats, extending his remarkable streak to 12 consecutive years under 10 seconds. Cameroon's Emmanuel Eseme won the final in 10.03 seconds, while the American Cambria Sturgis lit up the track in the women's race, blazing to 10.92 seconds, one of the fastest times ever on African soil. Elsewhere, Zambia's Muzala Samukonga claimed the men's 300 meters, Kenya's Mercy Okech won the women's race, and Nigeria's Chukwe Kubuka Enekwechi took the shot put. And Prudence Shekodiso and Tsepo Shiete also delivered standout performances. That's your sport. We'll be running back with more here on the National Briefing. At the top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
The Market Brief with Ndauleng Lechela on SAfm.
Ndauleng, good morning to you. The owner of Multi-Choice, that's Canal Plus, they're set to list on the JSE in June.
That's right, Cathy, on June the 3rd to be exact, becoming the first French company to join the exchange. Now, the move follows its takeover and delisting of Multi-Choice and forms part of the commitments attached to the deal, giving South African investors direct exposure to a larger pay TV and content group spanning Africa and Europe. While strategically significant, early integration pressures are already emerging. Multi-Choice reported quarterly revenue of 613 million euros, which is around 12.5 billion rands, and that's down from a year earlier. And that has also weighed on Canal Plus's results, which slipped 0.4% overall. Showmax also disappointed and is being shut down as the group pivots toward a global streaming aggregator model. Management, however, is holding firm on full-year guidance, leaning on expected cost synergies in content, distribution, and supplier negotiations across its expanded footprint. Linking into broader corporate strategy shifts, Minor Anglo American continues its own portfolio reshaping, with the group on track to exit its Australian steel-making coal business by the end of the second quarter. The sale process, which was delayed after an underground explosion at Moranbah North disrupted an earlier deal, is now back on track, with Bloomberg reporting interest from bidders including Stanmore Resources, Mitsubishi, and Indonesia's PT Boomer. Anglo says operations have normalized, reinforcing confidence in execution. Now, the disposal forms part of a wider simplification strategy as the miner pivots decisively away from coal and toward copper, iron ore, and potash. Of course, this comes after that buyout bid about 2 years ago from BHP. Then we saw Anglo declining that bid and really making shifts in the business. It also includes earlier divestments in platinum group metals and nickel, as well as ongoing efforts to sell De Beers and its planned mega merger with Tech Resources aimed at creating a leading global copper producer. That's against this backdrop of corporate repositioning. Market sentiment remains tightly tethered to geopolitics and monetary policy. Back home, trading conditions are expected to kick off choppy this morning as the US-Iran stalemate keeps energy markets elevated, with Brent crude holding above $110 a barrel. Over in Asia, equities are mixed this hour, tracking developments in the Middle East while digesting the Bank of Japan's decision to keep rates unchanged. Policymakers on that end have increased their outlook for inflation on the back of higher energy prices. Now, attention shifts to the US Fed, where markets expect Fed Chair Jerome Powell to hold rates steady while upcoming tech earnings continue to shape sentiment on Wall Street, with futures in positive territory. Lastly, in currency markets, the stronger rand and elevated oil prices are weighing on emerging market currencies, with the rand under pressure this hour at 16.56 to the dollar, 22.37 against the pound, and 19.38 versus the euro. That's your market brief for the morning. I'm Ntauleng Lechala.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an ABSA Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your funds. That's minimum risk, maximum benefit. ABSA Private Banking customers can invest from just R1. Open via the ABSA Banking app, a branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Attention all shoppers.
Our supermarket shelves are full of unhealthy food. It's often hard for me to know which foods are good for my family. The information on packaged food is complicated and hard to understand. I wish we had easy to understand warning labels on foods high in salt, sugar, and saturated fat. We have the right to know what's in our food. Support front of package warning labels on unhealthy packaged foods. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
You can become a victim of a legal problem. Wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Reality check on the National Briefing.
You're listening to the National Briefing at 7:44. Well, let's get then into our reality check for today. Joining us is Terry Tselane, a man who's been at the helm of the country's election, now chairperson of the Institute of Election Management Services in Africa. Terry, good morning to you. Thanks again for your time today. So you've taken us on a journey around elections and helping us understand why certain things are as important as and how we should see them as being important. Today you want to talk about the issue of freeness and fairness of elections, how that is determined.
Good morning to you, Cathy, and to your listeners, and thank you very much for having me once again. Yeah, the issue of the freeness and fairness of the elections is very important. because every time when there are elections, you will find people who would actually raise issues whether those elections were free and fair. And therefore, there has never really been anyone who has actually been able to explain what that freeness and fairness actually entails. So I just want to look at some of the issues that one would have to take in consideration in order to be able to come to a determination as to whether the elections are free or not. The first one is the political environment. And I think to a large extent, the majority of people, including the election observers, focus on the political environment when they are observing the elections. And they do not actually focus on the technical aspect of an election. So the most important aspect that they would look into is whether there was violence or no violence in an election. Of course, it's an important consideration when you are dealing with the issue of the freeness and fairness of the elections, but it is not the only aspect. But its importance cannot, its importance, we still have to focus on it. If you look, for instance, in South Africa, in around 2004, there were elections in KwaZulu-Natal in the place called Imbabazan, which were nullified by the court on the basis that those elections were not free and fair. And the reason why the court came to that determination was that there was a lot of intimidation. There were people who were not given access to the voting stations. And there was proof to indicate that indeed individuals who wanted to participate in the elections were prohibited from doing so. So once you have that environment, it means that people who are supposed to be participating in the elections would not actually be able to participate in the elections. And therefore, those elections cannot be regarded as free and fair. The second aspect is the legal framework. Legal framework is so important because it determines the framework within which the elections have got to take place. And also, it makes sure that every person who is participating in elections based things from the same hymn book, they have got to make sure that there is consistency in terms of the application of the legal framework or governs elections. And then you may be aware that not long time ago in South Africa, the New Nation movement actually took the Electoral Commission to court over the Electoral Act and saying that the Electoral Act, to the extent that it does not allow adult South Africans to participate in the elections as individuals other than a political party, that actually the elections not to be fair. And that was actually and hence the changes that had to occur over the electoral law. The third one is the voters' roll. Voters' roll basically determines, it's a document that determines or registers who participates in the elections and who does. And the reason why it is so important is that you use the voters' roll to basically adhere to the provisions of the legislation. For instance, legislation says that a person who is underage or who is under 18 cannot vote in South Africa. The voters' roll would actually be an important aspect to be able to make a determination because it would only contain the names of those people who are participating. Once again, this issue was during the Tlokwe matter. You recall that again, and I mentioned this previously, that we had a situation in Tlokwe where the elections were nullified on the basis that there were people who were not supposed to be part of the by-elections there in Tlokwe, and then that they were unfortunately registered to participate in the elections. So when he looks at the issue of freeness and fairness of elections, he says the legislation must be structured in such a manner that only those individuals who are entitled to vote are able to participate in the and that they've got and then make sure that their names are contained within the voters' roll, and that quality should not actually be allowed to. We have seen this also happening in Ghana. A certain gentleman called Abu Ramadan took the Electoral Commission of Ghana to the Supreme Court of Ghana, and also raised this issue that the voters' roll in Ghana contained the names of people who were not supposed to be in the voters' roll. Firstly, they had used national insurance card to register people, a card that was actually discontinued as a result of the court order. And secondly, that there were people who were underage whose names were also on the voters' roll. So the issue of the voters' roll and making sure that only those who are eligible participate in the process, it's an important consideration. The fourth aspect is that of the electoral staff. The electoral staff have got to be impartial. They've got to make sure that they apply the laws consistently, and they make sure that they do not favor one political party over the other. Because if you've got the electoral staff that then disadvantage one party and favor another, that election cannot actually be regarded as free and fair. The last one is the logistics of the elections. This is a critical aspect because when it comes to logistics, you're basically talking about making sure that you've got the correct amount of material at the right place at the right time. If people go to a voting station and they find that there are no ballot papers or there is no ink or there is no voters' roll and they are expected to participate in the electoral process, it means those individuals will actually be disadvantaged, or they will actually be advantaged in the sense that other individuals who may not be entitled to participate will participate. Alternatively, if you go to a voting station and you find that the names of people on the voters, or rather on the ballot paper, actually are names of people who are not supposed to be there. Maybe they are candidates in a ward somewhere in Ekurhuleni and in Johannesburg. Then it would mean that, again, those kind of elections cannot be regarded as free and fair. So whilst all these issues are important, it is important as well to make this point that we then have got to use the element to check as to whether all these issues were material enough to render the elections to be declared as not being free and fair or to be nullified if taken to court. So those are some of the important considerations when it comes to the issue of determination of whether the elections were free or fair.
Terry Tselane, let me thank you for your time this morning on the Reality Check.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. The crash on the R21 just north of the airport towards Pomona Road looks fairly sorted out. Traffic moving through there. There is a breakdown on the N12 around Craft Road. If you're coming through from Boksburg, that's slow. And then heavy traffic N12 and R24 routes as you join up and wait to get through Galuli's. N1 out of Pretoria down through Midrand looks clear this morning. A remarkably easy Wednesday for motorists that are coming out of Capital City and heading through to Joburg at this stage. Now, driving into Durban, not so easy. A crash scene near the Spaghetti Junction. So you've got a collision going inbound before Spaghetti Junction. That's causing a backlog from Pinetown area, from Paradise Valley through Pavilion. And then you've got a really big queue going out as well, coming down the N2 from Clare Road Bridge into Spaghetti Junction onto the N3 out as far as Pavilion Mall. So very heavy in that side this morning. Also crashing on the M7 at the N2. So from Queensborough, if you're bluff bound, there's a really big queue up of traffic to get through there as well. Cape Town, the N2, Somerset West, busy both directions at Victoria Street, and major delays if you're out of the Goodwood area this morning. Roadworks north and south on Jake Scoville near the railway bridge. Major delays on Jake Scoville and really big traffic locally, particularly on Viking Way in from the Elsie's Riverside. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Don't blow your paycheck on high car insurance premiums when you could be saving with Outsurance. So how much does 35-year-old Zanai save?
A whopping 1,180 Rand.
That's an incredible 1,180 Rand monthly saving on Zanai's 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLA. Get a quote now and see how much Outsurance could save you. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
With Outsurance, I'm saving a whole 729
Rand.
729 Rand is a sweet saving on 32-year-old Parushka's 2020 Haval H2. And after 3 claim-free years, you get an out bonus.
Yes, I'm ready for that out bonus.
You also get benefits like 24/7 roadside assistance and loads more. Get a quote now and see how much money Outsurance could save you. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online. Limits apply.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
Cathy, Marabis in Cape Town again. On this question of the fuel suppliers losing 20 billion, I mean, I'm not an economist, but I'm just thinking, is this 20 billion per supplier or 20 billion lost by the industry? Because that would mean they are losing less than the 6 billion that is lost by the fiscus, depending on the number of the suppliers. Suppliers are probably rich people, and I think they should be willing to cushion a bit more than the small consumers, the normal everyday working class people. Anyways, that's just my thinking. Thanks.
Morning, Cathy. We say no one is above the law in this country, but we are just lying to ourselves by saying that. A good example is Shamila Batoy. If it was an ordinary citizen who behaved or who acted like her or like Ramaphosa with the US dollars, if it was ordinary resident, what was going to happen?
Morning, Cathy. Cathy, this issue of Batoy, it just shows that this country is a banana republic. And people that were defending Zuma, they were right that the Zuma law, there is a precedent on this matter. So Batoy should face the very same music that Zuma faced. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes that you've been sending through to our WhatsApp line. Let me go to Benoni now. Oscar, good morning.
Morning, Sis Cathy.
You want to respond to the conversation we had with Malaika on regularizing all undocumented migrants or giving them some form of legal status?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think everyone is entitled to her opinion or her views. But my problem with Malaika is that 2 years ago, in 2024, she said something like South African men are not mean enough. So her now being invited to SAFM to advocate for illegal immigrants, it's a little bit difficult to listen to her. So it's like she's advocating for her in-laws in a way. That is in 2024, after her finding a Zimbabwean boyfriend, I've forgotten the guy's name. But that is what she said 2 years ago. That South African men are not mean enough.
But what about the work that she does as a researcher, as a columnist? So what I'm saying is, can we interrogate the views or the perspective that she's putting forward without finding the need then to dig into her life?
Yeah, it might make sense what she's saying. It's just that she's, somehow compromised. So it coming from her makes it difficult for some of us.
No, man. No, I don't agree with that. Because if we're to take people's personal lives, we start right at the top with the president, then it's going to make life very, very complicated for us, Oscar. So let's deal with the issue at hand, which is that there's an example of what Spain has done in regularizing over 500,000 undocumented migrants. And the argument she's making is that perhaps South Africa should follow the same tune.
Hence I'm saying, maybe what she's saying, it's reasonable, but it coming from her, you know.
Oscar, wang disappointer, man, Oscar. Wellington, in Welkom, I hope you're going to do better than Oscar.
Don't put me under spotlight and pressure. Good morning. Look, researching it's a good practice. You know? And the natural thing about research is the researcher himself or herself does have some personal background anyway of what he or she is researching on. It's not something that just comes from the earth. But let me just get to this issue. Two things that we need to indicate. First of all, each and every country has got its own foreign policy. And it's only meant to work with the relations of their nationals when they enter and exit each and every country. In a sense, what I'm trying to say is, in itself, that it's how people are being regulated or how countries are regulating their relationships. Now, if we look into a South African context, we know that before we can even talk about illegal and legal, there are acts like Immigration Act, number 13 of 2002.
Wellington, I'm going to ask you to try and wrap things up quickly. I've got to go to news.
Yes, what I'm trying to say is she might have just made a research on re-regularization, not regulations, because regulations are already there. People are just only to apply for visas, use all the resources that are there in South Africa that are available for everybody. Then from there, everybody will be regularized, then we'll no more have illegal immigrants. Thank you.
I see what you're saying there, Wellington. But the point is that the systems that exist, they're not working. They're not working. They're clearly not sufficient.
They are working.
They're not sufficient in dealing with the problem.
No, the question is, it's not the systems that are not working. Like we have seen that now we've got acts that are dealing with corruption and what. It's individuals and officials. Systems are there. They are working because we already have got people that are having documents from the very same countries where these people are coming from.
Okay.
So what do you mean when they say they are not working?
Okay.
It's only that people on their entry point, they want to bypass there and undermine there which is working and make it as if it's not working.
Wellington, we're going to have to leave it there. Wellington out in Welkom. Look, if there's a breach and you can't implement, then it means that it doesn't work. Let's take the latest news update.
Outsurance Essential is made for older cars. Claims are paid in cash within 5 working days, and you choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185.
Thank you, Cathy. The top stories at this hour. SANEF welcomes decision of its chairperson to step down, and Bellarmine Mugabe and co-accused to be sentenced today. Good morning. I am Chandruko Ligege. The South African National Editors Forum, SANEF, has welcomed the decision of its chairperson, Makhudu Sifara, to step aside pending an investigation into allegations of lottery funds misappropriation. This follows the Special Investigating Unit's revelation that a company linked to Sifara had improperly benefited from the stolen lottery funds intended for community development. Sifara has denied any wrongdoing. The forum has appointed Deputy Chair Chamano Makadi as acting chairperson. SANEF Executive Director Reggie Mwalusi.
The allegations are quite serious that are being made, and as SANEF, we are also a media advocacy organization, and we prioritize everything ethical when it comes to journalism and our journalists and so forth. And given what's happening, given that SIU statement, we agreed that it would be in the best interest of the organization that he steps aside, the deputy takes charge, and we're not saying he's resigning from the organization. He's stepping aside up until all this has been resolved.
Bellarmine Mugabe and co-accused Tobias Matonodze are expected to be sentenced today in the Alexandra Regional Court north of Johannesburg. Earlier this month, Mugabe, the son of the late former president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, pleaded guilty to being in the country illegally and pointing a firearm. However, the admission of guilt for pointing a firearm relates to a separate incident 2 weeks before a shooting incident at his Hyde Park home. Matonodze pleaded guilty to attempted murder, contravening the Immigration Act, defeating the ends of justice, as well as possessing a firearm and ammunition. This relates to the shooting and wounding of an employee at the Mugabe residence in Hyde Park in February. Sachin Naidu reports.
Last week, the court heard that the victim in the shooting incident is to be paid a total of 400,000 rand. Sipho Mashlangu, the security guard who was injured during the incident in February, has already been compensated 250,000 rand and is yet to be paid a further 150,000. This was according to investigating officer Craig Raj, who took the stand in aggravation of sentence. Raj went on to tell the court that a harsh sentence should be imposed, as both the accused are still not revealing the whereabouts of the firearm that was used on the day of the shooting.
2 suspects have been arrested following a robbery of an e-hailing driver in Parkwood on the Cape Flats. A video of the incident has gone viral on social media. It shows one of the suspects pointing a firearm at the driver and the other taking his money and cell phone. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says the e-hailing driver responded to a pick-up request when the incident happened yesterday.
We can confirm that 2 suspects aged 20 and 28 were arrested for robbery and will appear in the Wynberg Magistrates Court once they have been charged.
Police divers in Mpumalanga will continue their search of a 59-year-old man who was swept away in the Komati River in Komati Port. Police spokesperson Mavela Masondo says the man's vehicle got stuck in the river while he was trying to cross a submerged low-lying bridge on Monday night. This followed rains in the area. Masondo says the vehicle has been retrieved from the river.
When they arrived, they found that there's no one inside the car, but the car was still there, stuck. So they started to search. They couldn't find anyone. So then now we managed to take the car out of the river. But we've done our preliminary investigation to check who is the owner of the car. And we found out that the car belongs to a 59-year-old male who is residing in Vanderbilt Park in Gauteng. So we suspect that he was alone when he got stuck in the river, and we suspect that he jumped out trying maybe to get out.
And finally, legal experts are skeptical on the merits of the charges against the former head of the FBI, James Comey. This as the U.S. Justice Department continues to pursue President Donald Trump's perceived political enemies. A federal grant has returned an indictment charging Comey with making threats to harm Trump. This is the department's second indictment against Comey after a judge dismissed an earlier case in which it had accused him of lying to Congress. Sean Bryce Peace reports.
A picture of seashells on a North Carolina beach over a year ago in the shape of the numbers 8647. Trump, the 47th president, 86 has different interpretations. It could mean to kick out, to remove someone from a restaurant, or be slang for killing a person. The DOJ says Comey consciously disregarded a substantial risk that his communication would be viewed as threatening violence and could be interpreted as a serious expression of intent to do harm to the President of the United States. Comey removed the post hours after posting it after becoming aware of the criticism and denied his intent was violence. In a video message Tuesday, the former FBI director said he was innocent and believed in the independent federal judiciary.
A recap on the top story at this hour. The South African National Editors Forum, SANEF, has welcomed the decision of its chairperson, Makhudu Sifara, to step aside pending an investigation into allegations of lottery funds misappropriation. For SAFM News, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Theft, accident, and 1 million rand third-party cover for your older car. Outsurance Essential has it all. Get a quote. SMS car to 43185. That's car to 43185.
Driving an older car, you can't miss this. For his 2012 Hyundai Sonata, 43-year-old Qiniso chose Outsurance Essential Car Insurance because he gets covered for full retail value if his car is stolen or hijacked. For these and many more benefits, Qiniso pays only 510 Rand a month. Get Outsurance Essential Car Insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rand. SMS car to 43185. That's car to 43185. Outsurance license insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SAFM Sports Headlines. Soccer action with Mamelodi Sundowns facing a crucial Polokwane test as the title race tightens its grip. And we also bring you rugby with Chris Smith, his rise continuing as the Lions fly half pushes for Springbok selection. The details around 8:30.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a low volume Wednesday, remarkably clear on the M1 South through Midrand. You might be wondering where everybody is. If you're coming out of Pretoria, you've got a clear run there on that section of the M1 into Centurion. You swing through Brockfontein, and it's nice and easy all the way down through to Buccleuch. N1 Soweto through Four Ways looking the same. N3 North coming up from Germiston through Bedfordview, also very easy today. Some of the queues, N12 R24 routes into Galilee from the Ekurhuleni side. Both of those routes are jammed up. Durban's got a lot of traffic around Spaghetti Junction and Pavilion Mall. If you're inbound, there's been a crash coming in from Pinetown just after Paradise Valley, so that's a queue. And then if you're going out, on the N2 from Umgeda Road South into Spaghetti Junction, then you pick up a very slow going N3 out as far as Pavilion Mall, so lots of traffic there. Also a crash on the M7 at the N2 from Queensborough if you're bluffbound. That's quite a big delay to work through as well. Cape Town, very heavy around Goodwood. We've been detailing the roadworks on the N7 both ways near the railway bridge in Goodwood. The N7 North queues heavily from Langa. Viking Way, either from Pinelands or from Elsie's. Very heavy backlogs trying to get through that traffic on the N7. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
You are listening to the National Briefing with Cathy Mohlahlana.
SABC2 is bringing the heat. New shows, new faces, and stories that hit home, like the one I'm in called Pimville. And that's where you can catch me, Michelle Masalakai, every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.
Spar Winner Car is back. Stand a chance to win one of 50 Hyundai Extras when you buy participating products like 1 kg stock country spread tub for 46.99. Save 10 Rand or 80 gram Cadbury chocolate slabs, excluding bubbly. Buy any two for 36, save 14 Rand. Price is valid from 22 April till 10 May. Shop, swipe, and win while stocks last. Only at Spar. T's and C's apply.
You may or may not know the difference between a teaspoon and a caviar spoon, but you do know a great OUTsurance deal when you see one. Get a car insurance quote now, and if OUTsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and information online.
The National Briefing on SAfm with Cathy Mohlahlana.
13 after 8 o'clock, you tuned in to the National Briefing. I see lots of you want to weigh in on the discussion that we had with Malaika earlier on in the show regarding the piece that she's penned around regularizing undocumented migrants. Not surprising, this is always a hot topic in the country. So we'll take some of your calls later on in the hour. For now, though, let's get into our briefing debate. The Independent South African National Civic Organization, ISANCO, is calling for government to reinstate corporal punishment. They say it's needed as a tool to deal with crime and to restore discipline and order in our communities. Now, corporal punishment in our country schools was outlawed in 1996. It was further outlawed in our homes by the Constitutional Court in 2019. And yet, we still have reports of teachers in the country schools who are being disciplined for administering corporal punishment. Now, one of the questions that we have to deal with is what Isanko is putting before us today. Should corporal punishment be brought back as a way of dealing with crime and discipline? Dr. Zukile Luyenge is the president of the Independent South African National Civic Organization. Dr. Luyenge, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and your guest, the Professor Verinawa, and your dear listeners. And thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you. Professor Faranaz Veriava is a senior fellow to the UNESCO Chair, Education Law in Africa, also associate professor in the law faculty at the University of Pretoria. Professor Veriava, good morning to you. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Cathy. It's nice to be on your show again. And also good morning to Dr. Luyenge and to your listeners.
So for starters then, and perhaps you can make it plain for us in your own words, are you saying that the reinstatement of corporal punishment will help us deal with crime and discipline? And how do you argue this would happen?
Can I start, Cathy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Cathy, in as far as we understand as Isanko, the corporal punishment or corrective action is a structured system process used to identify, address, and eliminate the root cause of a problem, and then the non-conformity or undesirable event to prevent its recurrence. So we feel as Isanko that for us to be at the same page, where we must let us note that corporal punishment is the intentional application of minimal physical force to cause pain or discomfort as a penalty for bad behavior which is inflicted by parents to their children, their teachers, to their students, wardens, to their inmates, coaches to their players, chiefs to their communities, managers to their subordinates, and so on. So this is a cut-across action to all stages of life so that the children do not feel they are being taken advantage of because they are young. And for instance, as Isanko, we have deployed our Deputy President, Dr. Nsizaka Longalo, to run a program that seeks to assist teachers who are claiming to be highly stressed because they are treated badly by their own students. So the level of unsafety in school is escalating. Therefore, as we are working with the communities, we must try to close that gap that is between the teachers as now the victims of crime, also emanating from what is not taking place from our communities at our homes. We are not allowed by the constitution of this country even to punish our children for misbehaving. And then why would we expect that to also not happen at a school level? Why are we having the schools as institutions that are also able to do what we are failing to do? Because we need to do that.
You know, there'll be many parents who I think, Dr. Luyenge, when they have to think about another person, you know, smacking their child or whatever the case may be, we've seen the extreme cases, right, where it really becomes abusive. And perhaps not even venturing into those extreme cases, just I think there'll be a lot of discomfort with the idea of other people then laying hands on your children.
Yes, I fully agree with that notion of exaggerating the punishment, be it at the level of our homes or at school. So those are different minimal experiences, because we are a product of corporal punishment. From our schools during the apartheid era, we were experiencing it, but it never came to a level where it will be aligned to be a highly kind of exercising violence against the communities or children in our schools. So we've got professors, we've got doctors, we've got all the learned people in our country who actually are a product of that kind of a treatment. And it is a needed treatment because at no stage where we need to sit around with our kids and you don't tell them as to when you do right, I will give a pat on your shoulder. But when you do wrong, I must inflict a little bit of a pain so that you feel that there is a difference between good and bad. So it's a matter, Cathy, that in South Africa we need to look back and see as to how did this happen and made a contribution to produce the intellectuals that we have. None of the intellectuals that are coming from an environment where everyone do according to his or her will.
Okay.
There is no order. Yes, Cathy.
All right. Professor Vereva, let me bring you in. And this notion, right, that you have generations of people that are product of corporal punishment and they've turned out fine. That's what they believe. But what does the research tell us? What does the data tell us?
Yes, Cathy. Let me tell you, the intellectuals in our society are not the product of corporal punishment. They are who they are in spite of corporal punishment. Now, what the research tells us, Stats SA, for example, says that there are at least, this is from the census that's been done, that there are at least 1 million kids a year experiencing corporal punishment. Other studies suggest that there could be more. In terms of what the research says about corporal punishment, there was a study done in Michigan that was conducted over 50 years that looked at the effects of corporal punishment. What it says is not that you spare the rod, spoil the child. Instead, what it says is that children who experience corporal punishment tend to see a whole lot of behavioral issues, whether it's aggression, whether it's other forms of mental illness, self-esteem, and all of that. So there are no positive effects of corporal punishment. That's the one point I want to make. Point I want to make is that we have an effective regulatory framework that if it is implemented properly, where you have really ill-disciplined children, that legal framework in terms of whether it's suspension and discipline and criminal processes for very serious crimes and all of that, if we implement it properly, that we could deal with corporal punishment properly. But that the ills that we see in society start in school, I don't think so. Schools are microcosms of what is happening more broadly in society. And the other thing I want to say is that last week I was driving out of my yard and I just put on the radio and there was another story of the kind of corporal punishment that we are seeing in classes. We are seeing it because teachers are stressed. They aren't trained effectively in our legal frameworks and in alternatives to corporal punishment. But this particular story last week was about a child who had lost movement completely in one hand because of how she was repeatedly beaten. He or she was repeatedly beaten. I was involved in another case a few years ago where we took SAFE, that's the South African Council of Educators, to court for failing to properly discipline teachers in terms of their sanctions policy. And these were two teachers. The one teacher had beaten a child with a rod so severely that child had landed up in hospital. That child had to be operated on. The teacher went to the hospital and threatened the child, and the teacher was back in the classroom with a suspended sentence. So we are not talking about the corrective punishment that is being mentioned by Mr. Luyenge here. I don't think we can control corporal punishment. And then I also want to just say, which is why it is outlawed. It is outlawed because it is internationally more and more the standard is to abolish corporal punishment in the school. And we have to abide by our international human rights obligations. But I also want, before I pass over back to Dr. Luyenge, is to just read something from the Archbishop, the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and his support for the ban against corporal punishment and what he is suggesting in terms of what our civic obligations and religious leaders should be and civic leaders should be. He says, I support the global initiative to eliminate all corporal punishment at home, at school, in institutions and community. Violence begets violence, and we shall reap a whirlwind, which we are reaping now, and not because of corporal punishment, or not because of the ban, rather. I look forward to church communities working with other organizations to make progress towards ending all forms of violence against children. If we really want a peaceful and compassionate world, we need to build communities of trust where all children are respected, where home and school are safe places to be, and where discipline is taught by example. And nobody can say it better than the Arch.
Dr. Luyenge, let me give you a chance to come in. Hello, Dr. Luyenge.
Hello.
There we go. You're back on the line. Apologies, we'd lost you there. But let me give you a chance to respond then to Professor Verieva.
Okay. Oh yes. Our standpoint as I sang here, we have to prove that this is not what we are making up. You know, the book of the Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 24 says, and I quote, he or she who spares the rod hates his or her child, but he or she who loves his or her children is careful to discipline him or her. The main message here, Cathy and dear listeners, is that when you love and care for your child, you will provide a structure and correction to help them grow to become responsible citizens. The main reason for abolishment of corporal punishment in South Africa in 1996 focused on human rights, forgetting that every right goes with a responsibility. Giving a right to someone who is not mature enough to understand the very same right is like opening a can of worms, which will be very difficult to close. It is subjecting those rights to abuse. A psychological well-being of our children, we as parents are better placed to take good care of well-being of our children. We have that responsibility, and in a much more improved way than we were raised. That being said, there is also a room for improvement of the ways of raising our children with so much abundance of information and services which were not there in our times. So long-term social impact violence, inmates who are in their late 20s are committing the most gruesome crime ever seen in this country. It's all over the news. Children are killing each other, killing adults, committing crimes, and even taking their own lives. These are beneficiaries of abolished corporal punishment in our country. We are battling with escalating incidents of bullying in our schools. The policy that was approved on the 4th of August 2003 is neither negative nor hostile towards any religion or faith, and it does not discriminating against anyone. Rather, it displays a profound respect towards the religious faith and affirms the importance of study of religion and various religious observations. So, Cathy, the policy is not worth the paper that is written on. What is implemented in our schools is the direct opposite of the policy. The children that feel they don't like to attend the morning prayers are allowed to be idle. And idle mind is the devil's workshop. These children smoke dacha, drink alcohol, and start having sexual intercourse in the very same transport that is taking them to their schools and home. One of the reasons why the government did not see the negative impact of these policies is that the teachers' unions that are aligned with the ruling party advocated for the abolishment of the education inspectors.
Okay.
Approximately 40% of South African learners drop out before finishing matric, with only about 6 in 10 grade 1 learners reaching grade 12.
I guess part of this conversation is a broader issue of discipline, right? And what are the tools that are available to us as a society in restoring the level of discipline within our society? Because the reality is, if people feel that the only thing they have in that toolbox is corporal punishment, then that's what they'll default to. That's what they'll use. Yeah, unfortunately, the time we have simply not enough to do justice to this particular conversation. It's time for your latest news headlines. Chanduko is standing by.
Thank you, Cathy. Good morning. The case of 9 people accused of killing Tshwane University of Technology part-time lecturer Sifundo Madasi is set to resume in the Soshanguve Magistrate Court north of Pretoria this morning. The South African National Editors Forum, SANEF, has welcomed the decision of its chairperson Makhudu Sifara to step aside pending an investigation into allegations of lottery funds misappropriation. And Elon Musk has testified in a federal court in California in a case that could shape the future of artificial intelligence. A full bulletin at 9 o'clock.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a tale of 2 provinces and 2 different traffic patterns today. Gauteng province, remarkably clear. Good indication of that. The N1 from Pretoria down to Joburg via Midrand. You'll get there in good time. N3 north at Heldnace flowing. N1 Soweto four-ways flowing. Don't get to say that too much on a Wednesday. Contrast that to Durban, which is seeing a lot of traffic pressure. N2 south queuing Umgeta Road to Spaghetti Junction. And then you sit from Spaghetti Junction onto the N3 out towards Pavilion. So basically, Umgeta Road to Pavilion. Coming into Durban on the N3, a crash at Paradise Valley, so that's a delay from Pinetown side. And the M7 taking a while to clear up a crash at the N2. If you're bluff bound, there's a really big delay coming through from Queensborough. Cape Town, gridlocking around the Goodwood Epping area. It's the roadworks on the N7. Single lanes open both north and southbound. Northbound particularly bad with queues from Langa. Viking Way, near impossible to get through the N7 junction, so big queues all over that one. Crash on the M5 between Crombourne Road and Racecourse Road, holding traffic north and southbound. And as we saw yesterday, seeing it again today, Clovelly, the main road, South Peninsula, jammed both ways. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Oh man, Zai Khan. Let's take a look at Sundowns. They're facing a must-win game in Polokwane.
Ooh, Cathy, it's getting tight at the top, eh? Or they say, is it tough at the top and crowded at the bottom? I don't know, but let me tell you, this is an exciting time for South African football. We are excited to see this team in action tonight. Plenty to look forward to when it comes to Sundowns, who head to Seshego Stadium, knowing victory could take them to the top of the Betway Premiership table. Miguel Cardoso's side sit just 1 point behind Orlando Pirates with the game in hand, but they come into the clash on the back of 2 successive draws. Their first dip in form this season. Polokwane City currently 6th. They boast a strong home record and will be looking to frustrate the champions, and it's going to be a very tightly contested encounter. Speaking of tightly contested encounter, Kaizer Chiefs return to the Betway Premiership action tonight. A trip to Bloemfontein to face Siwelele FC. Amakosi come into the clash unbeaten in their last 7 matches, including a 1-1 draw. That's the Soweto draw against Orlando Pirates. Currently 3rd on the table. A win could take Chiefs up to 50 points. That's the mark, and strengthen their push for CAF Confed Cup qualification. Siwelele sitting 11th, will look to use home advantage to upset the visitors. Kickoff is at 7:30 tonight. Cricket action. The Rajasthan Royals have ended the Punjab Kings' unbeaten start to the IPL season with a 6-wicket victory in the high-scoring thriller in Chandigarh, India. Chasing 223, Yashasvi Jaiswal struck 51 before South Africa's Donovan Ferreira anchored the innings with an unbeaten 52, guiding the Royals home with 4 balls to spare. Earlier, Marcus Stoinis powered Punjab with 62 not out, but the Royals, their chase saw them move to 12 points, just one behind the leaders. Golf. Alex Fitzpatrick has officially joined the PGA Tour after his historic win alongside brother Matt at the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. The 27-year-old is now exempt through 2028 and qualifies for multiple flagship events, including the PGA Championships as well as the Players Championships. And a shock win for, Hailey Baptiste. She stunned the world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka, knocking her out in the quarterfinals. And it's the action at the Madrid Open. Here's Baptiste after the match.
How you going? Yeah, I definitely wanted to make her feel uncomfortable in any way that I could. Trying to hit drop shots, short slice, heavier balls, just didn't want to give her rhythm, obviously, because that's what she loves, and that's what she's so good at. And in the beginning, it was obviously a little difficult for me to find the ball and get comfortable. But once I did, I think, able to execute the game plan really well, and she just was unhappy.
We'll be serving it up some more here with sport with John Herika around 12:30. For the National Briefing Sport, I'm Zai Khan.
Wherever you are in the world, SAfm 104 to 107 is accessible. We're also streaming live on Facebook, X, and YouTube at SAfmRadio. We acknowledge and appreciate everyone tuning in and watching our streams. Stay with SAfm 104 to 107 as we bring you commission live, breaking stories, and thought-provoking lectures. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
Top Billing is back with a bold new chapter and fresh new faces leading the way. Get ready to experience the world of luxury, travel, design, and inspiring stories with dynamic new presenters bringing their unique style, energy, and perspective to every moment. The all-new season of Top Billing premieres on S3 Thursday the 30th of April at 7 p.m. Repeats Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1. Top Billing is back. You don't want to miss it.
Call SAfm now on 086 000 2032.
Morning, Cathy. On the issue of Malaika defending illegal foreigners, they must be realistic seriously. These people are stealing cars, take them across the border, they cannot be found. They rob people, they kill people, they rape people, cannot be traced anywhere. Why? They are illegal, there are no documents. And now you're gonna, even if they do those odd jobs, fine, but if they commit a crime, you cannot trace them. That's the gist of the matter here. We have to be realistic. In their countries, you can't do that. In Zimbabwe, you can't do that. In Nigeria, you can't do that. In Cameroon, you can't. In Ghana, you can't do that as a foreigner. But in this country, they are allowed to do it, and you must embrace that. Come on, guys, we can't be. There's no way.
Good morning, Cathy. I don't agree with what Malaika was saying. That is an invitation to more illegal immigrants, what she was saying. How can you regulate them? How can you document the illegal immigrants? You must arrest those illegal immigrants, not going to give them lawful papers. No, it's not fair, it's not good. And then she's talking about giving them jobs. What about us South African who don't have jobs? These people of South Africa, these government people like to put immigrant first instead of putting the voters first. We are the voters, but we are unemployed. It's not fair. These people are not fair. What she is saying is an invitation of trouble. She's inviting more illegal immigrants because they will live soft life here. It's not cool.
Those are just some of the WhatsApp voice notes that you're sending through on the line. Let me go to Lebohang in Pretoria. Lebohang, you want to talk about corporal punishment?
Good morning. Yes, I think corporal punishment should not be abolished. if you look at the adaptive survival mechanism, which includes pain, which basically talks to corporal punishment, it is an evolutionary method that was developed over billions of years for us to become who we are today, for us to have learned everything that we have learned as animals, basically humans as well. And that's what put us where we are today. So we should be looking at solutions of how to manage those who abuse corporal punishment, not to take out corporal punishment, because that is basically going against nature. And once you start messing up with nature, then you're not going to survive.
Okay.
That is
so Lebohang, your prism is that what, as human beings, we have this animalistic instinct and corporal punishment is the only way to tame that?
Corporal punishment, basically, it's causing pain, is it? As the doctor was saying.
Mm.
And if you look at adaptive survival mechanism, there's lots of research papers on that. It will show you that this method of pain, it is there to help us survive as animals. It helps us to avoid and learn what is right and what is wrong. So now, we want to please the whole world by sacrificing our future of our children and our grandchildren, by taking away or by basically fiddling with nature, because nature is what pain. Through nature, we have learned to become who we are, which is by pain. We have learned to avoid certain things because of pain. We have learned not to eat certain things because of pain, because they will cause discomfort. So now we want to fiddle with that and think we are doing great. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to come and redress this later, because it will be consequential to the future of our children.
Okay, Lebohang, let's leave it there. Is it a question of pain or consequences, right? For those who are into gentle parenting, that's a different outlook, right? That says that there is a way of getting children to understand the difference between consequences without necessarily inflicting physical pain. Denzel, you're in Morokweng. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. How are you? Fine. Cathy,
yes, Denzel.
Cathy, I think there's corporal punishment. Everything you do, you must do out of love. You know, we were taught that to practice respect outside, not only at home. You know, there's some people, charity begins at home. We are to be blamed for what our children are today. Because when you see your child does something wrong, to you it's normal. And in today's life, most of the cases is the woman that make our children to be like they are today. Because if you reprimand your child as a father at the house, you become the enemy in your house, in your own house. Because when you does this, discipline your children, the mother doesn't also take part in that. She will rather say to the children, you know how your father is. Or if the child does something wrong, I'm going to tell your father, what is the mother doing if the child does something wrong? Everything begins at home. And everything that you want to succeed with, you must do it out of love. I've got children. If I discipline a child that does something wrong, I must discipline the child as if it's my own child. I think if we start at home and do this as parents, things will get better. And we must stop pointing fingers to the government and say the corporal punishment. Let's do it at home. Then everything will come right. That's all I want to say, Getty.
All right.
Have a nice day.
And Denzel, you're aware of the Constitutional Court ruling, no? Of 2019 that said even at home corporal punishment is not allowed.
No, you must do it out of love. I mean, if you do that, then you explain to your child why am I doing this. Sometimes if you give your child pocket money and he does something wrong, and you just subtract that pocket money and then say, I'm not going to give you your pocket money this week or this month because of that and that and that. It's also punishment. It's also a punishment. It helps the child to think. Let's do it. Love plays a very big role in everything you do.
Okay.
Even an animal also. You must give it love, then it will give love back to you.
Okay. Denzel, let's leave it there. Mandla, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, my sister. You know, Cathy, these so-called researchers, they must be charged and be thrown into prison for 30 years for misleading the society. The fake researchers.
No, but I don't think that it's fair.
Can I please finish? Then after I finish talking, then you can ask me a question. Now, Cathy, when we grew up, we were given 3 lectures, not more than 3 lectures. And if a teacher wanted to abuse corporal punishment, a teacher didn't have a chance to abuse the corporal punishment because there was a rule that says not more than 3 lectures. Now, your so-called researcher that was speaking here on the radio, she said, oh, people abuse corporal and all of that. Cathy, on the roads every day, there are accidents. You can look now today, there are accidents. People are getting, they die on the road. Should we have not have cars on the road? Or should we have on the? Can I finish, please? Can I finish?
No, just hold on. No, Mandla, hold on. So I take you having an opinion, but I think let's not allow disrespect. Professor Faranaz Virieva is not a so-called researcher. She is a professor who has earned that title. She's an associate professor in the law faculty at the University of Pretoria. She's a UNESCO chair for education law in Africa. So by all means, debate what you have an issue with, but don't disregard and take away from the years and decades that she's put into her trade. Let's not do that.
Okay, what about the years and decades of our parents learning from their parents? Why she is disregarding that and wanted us to adopt her so-called research? Cathy, my sister, my former partner, she had a kid, né? And her daughter is about 10 years old now. When she was about 8 years old, I visited them there now and then to see my own kids there. Then I could see that this kid is misbehaving. I told them, my kids, they are older than her. I said, you know, this one is going to beat you up. When she's 15 years old, she's going to beat you up. You must not take this lightly. And then her grandmother was saying to her, don't play with her door. And then she was laughing and doing all that. And then I stood her and I took a belt and I gave her a good hiding. Since then,
did you stick to 3 lashes?
No, it was not 3.
No, but you said we must set a limit. You said 3 lashes is what gets the job done.
Yes, Cathy. I gave him about 10 or
So
11.
why did you break your own limit then,
A belt, Cathy, is not like a stick. There's a difference. A belt is more lighter than a stick. So, Cathy, since then, that kid is well behaving. So, these so-called professors, they must be thrown into jail for life.
Mandla.
You know, Cathy?
No,
okay,
Mandla.
You know,
Okay,
Cathy?
let's leave it
Is
there.
it because
Mandla,
of, Cathy, you know,
I've given you ample time. I've given you ample time to make your point. And again, it doesn't have to get personal. Professor Varieva does not deserve to be thrown in jail. She's done nothing wrong. Why do you feel the need to criminalize a view that you don't agree with? It's a view. There's freedom of expression, freedom of speech in this country. And what she did is that she gave us the research on which she has formed her opinion and formulated her position. Manda, you can do the same. But that's precisely why this debate around corporal punishment goes the way that it does. When we started, you said 3 lashes. When we ended, you said, no, if it's a belt, it must be more lashes. And this is part of why we ended up with corporal punishment being outlawed. What are the boundaries? What are the limitations? Okay, let me go to Rob. Rob, corporal punishment or not? Or are you one of those that turned out well because you had 3 lashes administered from time to time?
I had some lashes. Yeah, I would have had some lashes from time to time. Can't lie about that. Whether it's appropriate in today's day and age, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's up to the parents, isn't it? Right, good morning. Roads looking remarkably clear across Gauteng. It's been an easy Wednesday, really remarkable. N1, Soweto, four ways looking good. N3, Germiston, Bedfordview, also moving unusually well for this time of the morning. And the N1 out of Pretoria through Midrand to Joburg, going to get there in really good time this morning. Not so clear around Durban. There's a breakdown on the N2 South going into Spaghetti Junction. That's a queue from Umgena Road. A crash and a breakdown before Pavilion coming in from Pinetown. It's heavy. And the M7 still very slow from Queensborough. If you're blockbound, that's a crash at the N2 highway, which is taking a while to clear up. Cape Town, a collision on the M5 South approaching Racecourse Road. That's quite heavy as you make your way towards that scene through Rondebosch northbound, getting caught with some delays there as well. And of course, the N7, this has been our talking point in Cape Town, very heavy. One lane open going north near the railway bridge towards Voortrekker. Big delays out from Epping and Lunga. Viking Way, near impossible to get across the N7. You're going to queue heavily both ways on that section of Viking. And traffic lights, short timing, or there's a problem with the arrows on Baden-Powell at Strandfontein. It's favouring the traffic flow on Strandfontein, which is light volume, and that's why Baden-Powell still queuing on your way to Muizenberg. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
8:51, you're listening to the National Briefing. Yeah, so many issues coming out of today's show that have gotten your attention that you want to weigh in on. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I'm going to have to limit the feedback or the contribution. Let me go to Zoe. Zoe, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy. Are you okay?
Zoe, go for it.
I'm sure you expected Rob to say the opposite of what we are saying.
I don't expect anyone to say anything, Zoe. I come here with an open mind.
Now, there must be something horribly wrong, Cathy, about us who support corporal punishment. So there must be something horribly wrong.
Why?
Because I'm one of those. I'm saying that if corporal punishment is wrong, then we are saying that it is correct, then there must be something wrong with us. I support corporal punishment, Kate. It is true. Corporal punishment, even the guy who came to online here, I don't know his name, he quoted the Proverbs, the Book of Wisdom, which is the Bible, God's book. Yeah, I don't know where he quoted. I tried to check in my Bible. I can't find it. Every time I talk about my late mother, okay, I always come to how she used to discipline me through this corporal punishment with love, deep love about my mother. I will never forget about that. Hey, this woman knew how to bring up a child. I know what is wrong, what is right. When I talk about my mother, every time I even come into tears. I say, oh, this woman. Yeah, because
you reckoned you turned out well because of corporal punishment.
I'm saying that, you must know that is the microcosm of the big punishment, even if it would be a death penalty in society. You know the consequences of your actions through corporal punishment. That thing is done with tough love. That's why there was so-called love-hate relationship between us and our teachers. But what I thought in the beginning, when people were propagating the end to corporal punishment, I thought that they were saying that, and I agreed with that. I thought that they were saying that children at school should not be punished for being slow learners or that kind of thing. They must be given a close attention as to what makes them to fail. Not because if you got out of 10, you got a 2 or 3, you would be heavily punished during those years. But now I thought, maybe these guys are coming to the answer that no, man, you can't just blame a child for not mastering this mathematics. You must give close attention. But for other misdemeanors, like other mischief, late coming and being rude and that kind of must be disciplined. I thought that's what they were saying. I didn't know that they want wholesale stoppage.
Okay. You know, so
Yeah.
the thing is, for everybody who believes they've turned out well because of corporal punishment, now we're going to want receipts. We're going to want CVs. We're going to want community support statements. We're going to want evidence that indeed you
Yeah.
are the upstanding members of society
No,
that
no,
you
no,
claim
no,
to be.
no,
Because
not-
corporal
not-
punishment
No,
clearly
not
made this
necessarily
big
that,
difference.
but that, no, not necessarily that I must be whole. Yeah, I'm a human being and I may have 80%,
That's not
but
what is
that,
being advocated for here. You're saying
Well, what-
corporal
yeah.
punishment made you a model citizen.
yeah, we said that. Yeah, you know, you're very strong. You develop a very strong sense of good values, wrong or right. Yeah,
Yeah, so
after
I guess
corporal punishment.
all those that experience corporal punishment, they're not involved in corruption at Ekuruleni, tender fraud. You won't find them there paying kickbacks. They pay their taxes and electricity on time. I'm being a bit facetious, but
Oh, okay. Okay.
Zoe, let's leave it there.
Built in Mzansi on the National Briefing.
All right, 8:56. We're getting ready to get out of here. But before we do, we can't leave without telling you stories of South Africans that are really driving innovations. Professor Maureen Musi is an associate professor in nursing science and advanced midwife specialist at the University of Pretoria. She's launched 2 initiatives that are reshaping reproductive health in this country. It's the Morunwa Graceful Beginnings and the Ubuntu Community Maternal and Child Health Initiative. Professor Musi, good morning to you. Thank you for your time. Tell us about this work that you have been doing and why it's gotten the attention of the country and the rest of the world.
Good morning, SAFM, and to your listeners. Thank you so much for having me. I've been working for some time at the labor ward, and I noted with concern that there's a lot of complications that are arising within the maternity. Midwives are not that competent or even skillful enough to manage those obstetric complications and emergencies, with complications such as your shoulder dystocia, your postpartum hemorrhage, which accounts for 1,000 live births, which are the deaths that are, preventable only if midwives were skillful and competent in managing emergencies. So one of the initiatives that I am working on is developing a mobile application that will assist midwives, especially in the rural communities, to be able to identify early and manage, those emergencies that women can experience during their childbirth. So it will give them that on-site, that point of care, that same time clinical decision that will assist them to be able to manage that is complicating. And then the second thing that you've spoken about is Murunga Graceful Beginnings, which is a mobile clinic that is aiming to reach women that are, in whatever area. I've opened that clinic so that I can be able to assist women that can't be able to also, go to the clinics. So it's something that I do a consultation where a woman will send me or indicate a need that they have, and I will go to wherever they are, so to their doorstep. So those are the 2 initiatives that I have opened that are really assisting women at the point of care at whatever area where they are, am able to reach that woman and give that woman assistance during their pregnancy, childbirth, and even postnatally.
So if we look at midwifery as a profession, it's highly undervalued, right, and under-resourced. Do you think that's changing, Prof?
I think nowadays, as midwives, we are trying so much that to go into entrepreneurship, or to go into, to improve the status quo, or to improve the image of nursing, because there's so many things that we are doing as midwives that it is undervalued. But it's about time that we bring it to the community that there are midwives out there that are making changes. There are midwives that are contributing to the greater good of the well-being of the pregnant women, within South Africa. So I think we are working towards changing that image that people are currently accustomed to. So we are making improvements. Yes.
Professor Maureen Musi, we're going to have to leave it there with you for this morning. That's also where we wrap it up on the National Briefing. Up next, the Daily Discourse with Joanne Joseph.
Thank you, Cathy. The top stories at this hour. Case of 9 accused of murdering TUT lecturer to resume this morning, and SANEF welcomes decision of its chairperson to step down. Good morning. I am Chanduko Ligege. The case of 9 people accused of killing Tshwane University of Technology part-time lecturer Sifundo Madasi is set to resume in the Soshanguve Magistrate Court north of Pretoria this morning. The group allegedly killed Madasi in Soshanguve in February after accusing him of sexually assaulting 2 minors. All the accused were granted bail of 2,000 rand each under strict conditions, including not contacting state witnesses. Nonhlanhla Nchingila reports.
9 suspects were arrested after an alleged mob justice incident in Soshanguve on the 25th of February this year of a man accused of sexually assaulting 2 minors was found dead in the street. Despite the state opposing bail over the seriousness of the case and fears of witness intimidation, the court ruled that exceptional circumstances justified granting the accused bail. The court postponed the matter for further investigations. Nonhlanhla Nchingila for SABC News, Pretoria.
The South